Linda, do you know of anybody that's tried to access it?
I've had 2 public members ask me about it, and I told them how to get to it, and I got a response back that they didn't have a problem with it. Sadie, have you had anybody asking the knitting folks up there about it?
No.
Most of the times they just call and ask how much is it going to cost, can you give me a quote?
I helped 2 people navigate.
Yeah, that would be kind of hard to do because my friend's having a coleostomy, and on there's 4 different sections for coleostomy depending on what kind you're going to have, and then how long you're going to be in surgery, and how confusing it all is. So I think it's a waste of money for our government to even suggest that the hospitals do that.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You're saying there were so many options that it was just...
Well, if I remember correctly, there's like 4 sections for coleostomies. Instead of just a coleostomy. It depends on how long you're in the operating room, how long the anesthesia is. I mean, you don't know all that ahead of time.
Right.
And this is supposed to help people make wise choices. That's sort of asinine because it doesn't. I think it's very confusing.
Thank you.
But it's kind of interesting to find out that if you want a comb, that's $8. I'll go to the Dollar General for a comb.
Well, I think they're a waste of time anyway.
I mean, that's a waste of the hospital time to have to do that because it doesn't serve any purpose. So that could confuse people.
So one of the alternatives we have is when the community or patient asks for a quote, we can give them a quote on what the physicians have said that might happen. And it's all about what might happen. Because it's exactly as you said. One colonoscopy could take 15 minutes where another's going to take 2 hours, and we can't tell you.
It's like I just got the bill for my hernia, which I was only in the hospital 1 day, and that was more than I was in for a week for last year. And, you know, you think it would be less. But no, I really think it was a waste of time, and whoever took their time in that and put it on, I commend you, because it makes it very, very tedious and a waste of your time.
Okay, thank you for your input.
It was funny to read.
Linda, her friend though can contact the administration
Oh, definitely.
and get an estimate. Your friend can contact administration to get an estimate.
Yeah, it sounds like you need some professional help to navigate through that.
I mean, an accountant.
Right. Well,
Even your recovery room. If it's a scheduled recovery room, it's one price. If it's unscheduled, it's a different price. And, you know, it's a waste of time and good paper. But I thank you for printing it all off for me.
You actually put it on there, so.
Yes, lots of time. No, not really.
any other public comment? Okay, we'll move along. Mashuda? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah,
I don't.
my last name Rennie.
She is, we are glad to have an excellent ultrasound tech here at Seneca Hospital again. You want to just give us a little talk on
Sure.
the services you're able to provide?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm ready. I've been in ultrasound for 7 years. And I have done all ultrasound protocols. There is no limitation in what I can do. Our machine, Axon, had some limitations, but I was able to pull through. But the new machine that we just received from Quincy, it's got a lot of features that we don't have in the current machine. So, you know, there's nothing we can do with these 2 machines together. And I'm trained in all areas, and I could say I'm expert in all areas. So I'm just waiting for the orders, and I've seen a lot of improvement in this month. Winter was a little bit slow, but I'm thinking we could do a lot more.
Can you do echocardiograms?
Echo is, right now it's a different modality pretty much, so I'm not trained in echocardiogram at
Yeah.
all, but vascular.
You can
I'm
do all the
very well
vascular.
trained, yeah. But if anybody's willing to teach me echo, I would love to learn. And I'm a very big learner.
We've had a lot of positive comments on what Reddy's been doing. One of the things that, and Lindsay's unable to be here, she had a family emergency, so she's not here. We want to start doing some more advertising, some PR marketing of that service, so that will enhance our revenue. So that's another piece that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, we can put together a lifeline screening type of a small exam that checks the carotid valve or the ICA if there is any blockage, and ABI. And then that pretty much gives us if they have any arterial disease. So, you know, that'll bring us some money.
Yeah.
Some revenues into the company. So,
Well, I
yeah.
must say that personally, I've appreciated having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving along with the agenda here. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the March meeting? These were not available in a timely manner at the last meeting, so they were postponed until this meeting. And if everybody's had a chance to look at them, could I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Jerry?
Aye.
Rich?
This is last month's,
March.
meeting or the year?
March.
Okay, aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Rich? I mean Ken, I'm sorry.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Then the April minutes, has everybody had a chance to review the April meetings, the last meeting? And again, if so, I'll accept a motion to approve them.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Ken?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Rich?
Abstain.
Jerry?
Aye.
And approve them also. Dr. Ware, do you want to review each of these individually?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about every single one, yeah. There were a lot of policies, some of them were new. They passed mid-staff without any change whatsoever, so we found them acceptable. I don't know if you want to do all of them together, or...
Well, is there any discussion by the board members on any of these policies and procedures?
I guess my question is, why do we suddenly have so many new skilled policies? Is that because of our recent site visit?
No, it's because we had some policies that were combined, that we uncombined them. We had some policies that became new. We had some policies that, when Pam Valencia looked at some of the policies we had, we needed to beef up or we didn't have. So this is not due to the survey whatsoever. This is due to our staff looking through what we had and making
And
sure everything's
separating them.
correct.
So for the ones these are replacing, are we then, don't we need to vote to discontinue?
contributing factor to this is that we finally came to an agreement with the union about the 2019 pay adjustment, which was at 2%. Talk about wasting time. That was the offer when we started the discussion back at the first of the year, and it took us 5 months to get to 4 months to get to this point. So, incredible waste of time, everyone's time in that effort. Not that the pay increase is not something that we don't want to provide, but it was what we offered when we first started, and we went around and around with silly proposals and silly exercises that wasted everyone's time to get to the same point where we started. So we did their 2% pay increase retroactive back to January of 2019, and this provided about an additional $40,000 in labor expense for the month. One of the FTEs for the month were 103.68 versus a budget of 106.8. In looking a little deeper, I think I probably went light on nursing on the budget. I think I under budgeted nursing. One of the things that we can talk about in the budget, of course, one of the things that we absolutely need to do here is we have to account for all of the labor on an FTE standpoint. We can't just look at dollars because of the variable in pay rate between registry and employed individuals. And so when we do next year, we'll count FTEs. Not this FTE here is employed FTEs. It doesn't consider the registry folks. And so we'll put that into the budget, and as we talked about in Finance Committee, I think we'll micromanage labor a little more in this next year than I certainly did this year. So we can provide that information to you as part of the monthly packet so that this all ties out, because that leads into the fact that the contract labor remains over budget. And the relationship we want, it's not a one-to-one, because the wage for a registry individual is about twice what we pay for an employee, at least the wage part of it. And of course we pay benefits on top of, pay benefits on top of an employee. But just look at wage, salaries and wages to contract dollars. It's about a 2-to-1 or so relationship. And so when we're, if you take out the 2% retroactive in salaries and wages, we're pretty close to budget, but we're still over on contract labor, and it was due to the additional contract nursing, in addition to the contract radiology tech. The pro fees for medical, I've provided an attached analysis. That's going to be a big part of the budget discussion, because we're going to see some changes there. And we had hoped to see those. We had hoped to see those changes this fiscal year. We finally got to where we want to be with the ER physicians, where now our hourly cost to staff the ER is under $140 an hour, and then that's where we want it to be. We had some fluctuations during the year due to the use of locums, and as I mentioned, other expenses. There's the cost of the locums, their travel and housing. That's not reflected under professional fees. That's just their hourly rate. Purchase service, we had more days with the MRI, and we also had to refill the old generator. We purchased an interface for the MindBrain telemetry unit. That was also included in purchase service. Like I said, the other expenses were over budget due to the housing and travel for the local providers. All other expenses are essentially within budget. One thing we've talked about in the past, in the salary, in the employee benefits, I had budgeted for the net amount that we ended up paying, and my accounting person records it at gross expense, and so we budgeted it at gross expense this year, so there shouldn't be a variance during the year, except for an increase or decrease in wages, and then we'll see the credit come through with the audit adjustments at that time of the year, end of the year, settle that up. Yes?
So, for example, if we have someone here who's been placed by the Alliance for Workforce Development,
Yep.
I imagine we're seeing their expense come out of salaries and wages, but where do we see the
Yeah, we put them up, right now we put it up in other operating revenue, and there were a couple.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we received reimbursement for, an LVN for sure, and I'm not sure where the other individual works, so, the departments have asked me to put that in salaries and expense.
So we're only talking about a couple of.
It's a few $1,000s, I mean, it's something, it's a nice program.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Steve, in days in accounts payable and days in cash on hand, May 18th and April 19th, the days cash on hand is about the same, but the difference in 18, 19 in accounts payable seems to me to be appreciable.
Right.
Is there a reason for that, or?
That's my bonus accrual.
Pardon?
That's the accrual of my bonus.
I'm sorry. People from the University of Arizona talk funny.
No, we have in there a $220,000 payment due to Medicare. They come in the middle of the year and they review our rates, and because of the increase in the swing bed volume, they had been overpaying us on swing and inpatient, and so we have a settlement due to them of $220,000. Probably the best thing to do would be to take that out, and just because it's not apples to apples with what's happened, but that's the whole thing driving that.
Any other questions or Steve?
You know what, can I just run through the bottom part just real fast? So, as Dana pointed out, the days of cash on hand are pretty close to where they were in May. So, this is not an uncommon event for us, and you can see that in 2018 it jumped right back up, jumped up substantially. We're expecting the same thing. We've already received over $3 million of our supplemental payments, and we still have another 1.6 to go. So we anticipate that we'll see almost the exact same thing, and maybe a little higher than what we experienced in 2018, that our cash will go back up. It actually will go up in May this year. And we've received a big portion of it, and we'll receive the rest in June. So next month when we report, the cash will shoot right up, and then we'll have another increase in June. So we think that it's reflected in the financials in the budget that our cash will go up at least over $1 million from last year. So that's the positive thing. We'll talk about the not so positive thing during the budget as far as operations. But cash-wise, balance sheet, really strong, continue to be. Revenue cycle, the AR went down 160,000, and our days are at 52.6. We unfortunately we had a patient that was left with us, and there was no place that we were able to transfer the patient. We probably shouldn't have even had the patient if the patient would have been taken to the proper place, it wouldn't have been us. But once we had the patient, they were ours, and there were legal legal matters that prohibited us to get the patient to the appropriate place. And so the patient stayed with us almost 3 months. And there's nothing we can do. We have to take care of a patient such as this situation, this individual, when we have them, which we did. We actually did amazing things with this individual. They're now a resident of our nursing home. And but we incurred a bill of just under $400,000 on this patient, and we looked at it from every direction and way, and we just don't believe that it's a Medicare's primary on this, and this is what we provided was not medically necessary services that we can bill Medicare for, so we'll have to do right off the $400,000. So that's the bad news. The good news is with that $400,000 out of AR, that brings the days would have been in the mid 46.5. So now our days are back down to where we want. Doesn't mean the problems are over with HRG. It's an ongoing battle, but obviously the numbers are looking much better and moving in a positive direction. That's part of the HRG report too. So, okay, that's it. Thank you.
If there are no further questions of Steve, we'll entertain a motion to accept the financials for the month. Second? All in favor? Jerry? Dana? Rich?
Aye.
Ken? And I vote aye. We're going to deviate from the agenda just a little bit. The proposal for the emergency department EHR system, we're going to move up to right now because Dr. Mellon is working the emergency room. We have the advantage of having Dr. Mellon, Dr. Ware, both ER doctors here, and TK for IT. So TK, do you want to make the presentation, or how do you want to do this?
I can intro us in. Sure. So before we begin any focused discussions, I just wanted to take a moment to recap.
Can she come
G,
forward?
tab G. This is tab G for board members.
TK, would you come up so this?
Sure. I just wanted to take a recap because I realized that some of the information that we're discussing here, some board members weren't present at that period of time when we initially began some of this research. So we began our electronic health record journey in 2012. We purchased CPI's basic platform, which was designed for inpatient use. We have never had an ED module. In 2014, we began looking for ED solutions, and while researching these solutions, we have resourcefully created internal workarounds so that the most basic platform could be used by non-inpatient units, but that does not say that it meets all of our needs, nor does it reach our level of quality expectations for the ED. So we hope to outline today that it is a greater risk for us to not move forward with an ED module, and it would be prudent to invest in the quality and future of the ED department. In regards to medical quality, two key factors that differentiate the ED from the inpatient units, which would differentiate the use of the basic platform, is the critical status of the patients as well as time. When we're taking these into consideration, orders can be missed because the doctors and the nurses are not functioning off of the same platform. There is a disconnect in documentation. And time, by design, the ED needs to be more concise to the chief complaints. The navigation and documentation should be streamlined and alerts should be prominent. Any time saved equates to patients being seen in a more timely manner, to the earlier treatment, as far as whatever we might, say, for example, administration of antibiotics or things of that nature. just having the patient seen so that we can get an earlier transfer, as well as it also helps to ensure that patients aren't left without being seen. In regards to the business side, there are three key components. One is realized revenue for services we are already providing, compliance with CMS and survey guidelines, and ad hoc reporting that can be easily extracted and effectively used for our analysis and growth and development of our ED department as well as the facility. We can do better in these areas. And I can go through in more detail if there's questions or as we go along, but I don't want to keep the doctors from their services. But I do want to say that we have taken into consideration patient feedback for our services. We have listened to our medical staff and our nurses, and we have identified these areas for improvement on the business side. We feel our patients deserve the best possible care and that our organization should be reimbursed for services that we're already providing. The reason why I'm before you is because it's my responsibility to reveal that technology does exist and a quality ED module would be capable of addressing these risks and concerns. And over time, it would pay for itself through revenue capture, reduced liability risks, and improved service delivery. Our team has performed an in-depth, deep dive, hands-on, many months review of 4 vendors whose software is designed specifically to meet the emergency needs. And I hope that we can communicate and answer any questions. It is our goal to meet these needs, and it is our expectation to deliver the highest possibility for quality of service. The emergency module is a safeguard for patient safety. It does lend to the continuity of care as well as the transition of care. When it should facilitate efficient use of time, and then that leaves the doctors and the nurses more time to actually spend in patient care. And something that we haven't discussed in great detail, but it also increases the user satisfaction and retention, which in the past, because of our location, that is a challenge for us as far as staffing, retention, and also recruiting in that manner. So there are many people in the ED industry that are familiar with these ED modules and would appreciate our having the highest quality to offer. And I just wanted to add, please note, I don't mean for my demeanor to come across as frustrated or impatient. I don't enjoy public speaking, but I am very passionate about this. We have invested a lot of time and effort, and we also feel an urgency for a timely resolve. So I just want to let you know that I don't come across well if it's not intended.
So, can we have a breakdown of costs?
Oh, yeah. Let me grab my binder here. So, when reading the proposal, it was a little bit difficult. We had to break it down and then kind of extrapolate it because each vendor offers their proposal in a different format. The T-Systems is a 5-year proposal. Evident does it on a 1-year basis, and PowerDoc does the same, but how they include in their proposal and how they present it is different. So that's why I had to really dig into the contracts. So at the bottom of your spreadsheet, on the last page, yeah, there's a comments box. So basically, for T-Systems, the proposal amount is $334,403. That's for 5 years.
It's under the tab G.
Yeah, it's on page 3 on, yeah.
Tab G.
You're right in there.
Okay.
So that's payments. Yeah. It'll be a sheet like this. Yeah. It's the last one.
Right. their little proposal, you'll see the number 334403. That's for 5 years. For us to do that and to do it effectively, we would need to add an interface with Evident. That 21,000 represents the upfront and 5-year cost of that additional interface. And then I approximated the tax to come out to $372,198. And then if you notice in the asterisk, that it does not include travel costs. So each and all of these vendors indicate in their contract that we're responsible for travel costs for the initial go-live week. So that leaves a little wiggle room. So when you received the proposal, it said not to exceed 380 because I wanted you to understand the 5-year extrapolated cost. I didn't want you to think that we weren't being transparent with the total cost of the system.
So basically, what you're saying is that 334
Is the contract
split
proposal.
over 5 years? The payment will be made over 5 years?
They have different payment models. One is an upfront payment, which payments would initiate, it would be 25% in July, 25% 60 days later, and then the remaining due on the implementation, the completion of the implementation.
So then maybe, can you explain to me a little more, when you say 5-year adjusted cost, what are we actually talking about? What does that mean?
Well, so like for Evident, the initial interface cost upfront is about 10 grand, but then they add a monthly cost. And when you take that monthly cost, the total cost would be 21,000.
Okay, so we're saying total cost at the end of 5 years will be this.
If
but not
you go with
necessarily-
these.
not necessarily variant.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Does the 21,000 for the Evident interface include the amount required to pay Evident also, or just T-Systems for that interface?
So for T-Systems, all interface prices are included in that 334.
Okay.
So there are no additional interface costs other, because it's already in the 334.
Okay, so on the T-Systems side is up there, the 21,000 is on the Evident side.
Correct. Yeah. Now, on the Evident side, their proposal came out at 166,440, but that's for 1 year. Also, the way they treat some of their costs, or how they bill that to us, we would be responsible for a licensing monthly support. And that's based on 8 doctors and 8 nurses, and that's the initial and monthly cost for the 5-year period. So it's not 81 times 5. For the 5-year period, it would be 81,120. Same thing for the content support and the additional users. They base it on the number of users. T-Systems bases it by station, so that's why you don't see that calculation under T-Systems. So again, that's taking it out for what it would cost over 5 years. If we had additional training, more than 2 doctors, they add an additional fee. That's why you see the 9,000 there. The 4,000 is basically a baseline price based on the 8 doctors and 8 nurses. In the summertime, when we have the potential for increased physicians via the local service or things of that nature, that cost could go up. And then again, tax approximately. So for a 5-year period, Evidence total cost would be approximately $298,963.
And that's assuming we have them train more than 2 physicians, but if we do train the trainer sessions, then we wouldn't have a $20,000 cost.
Potentially, yes. I don't know what the staffing is going to look like at that time. If it happens to be a week where we have a lot of doctors come through, they will get this with that charge. And I just wanted to be upfront with the potential costs. On ePowerDoc, the reason why they look so low is because they don't provide any of the hardware. That responsibility is on us.
I'm sorry, what's on us?
The hardware. So that's why that looks so much lower in comparison to the other 2 modules. They came in at 84.5 as an initial bid. And this is why I tried to break it out for you, because there's a lot of details there that are important. So we estimated it approximately at $75,000, although they recently issued some hardware requirements that may cause some fluctuation to that number. We would also be responsible for the $90,000 for licensing and annual maintenance fee. The $21,000 for the Evident interfaces is added in. And for their electronic prescribing of controlled substances, theirs would be $18,000. and then again, a tax approximated. So then that kind of puts them a little bit more on an even comparative level, and they're all over a 5-year commitment.
Do you have in here somewhere, so after our 5 years, so we're still using the system, what our monthly would be with each of these?
So they would be reluctant to give us an actual number, but I did have discussions on that, and what we would be then looking at is, say if we had just come to our 5-year renewal today, the current approximate amount is $50,000 per year.
Oh, per year.
Per year.
And that's for T-Systems?
Correct.
What about the other two?
That's just gonna be depending on your ongoing costs. So again, it's gonna depend on the volume that we have and what we go forward.
Yeah, I was just trying to compare.
They didn't guarantee any stability of rates.
But is the T-Systems contract a 5-year contract?
Yes.
DK, how long has T-Systems been around?
In times, years,
30 years or
about
something.
30 years, as far as the paper version.
Yeah.
And I believe the electronic went into play approximately 2008.
And it was always designed specifically for the emergency room.
Right, it was designed by emergency room physicians for emergency room use.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you have any concerns at all about the interface piece there. In my experience, the systems we talk to each other is not always easy, and sometimes we get into these discussions about it's your fault and it's your fault. And
Yeah, actually, okay, so T-Systems has 25% of every market share in the emergency department. They are very proficient with this interface. They actually have a dedicated person at Evident that.
So definitely have to first go
So
around.
they've
Not
done it before.
Correct. And actually, there is an employee at T-Systems that moved over from Evident. So you actually have some Evident knowledge on the T-Systems side.
And so the larger systems like Cerner and Epic, they have a built-in ED module.
They have a built-in ED module. We did look at Cerner, but it kind of negates it for us because they would demand an entire facility new.
Right, I wasn't considering that, just was wondering.
But something, this is not, there's not a great detail on this, but there are talks about Cerner using pieces or incorporating or working with T-Systems for their ED module. It's not specifically outlined, but I do know that there's some talks to that regard.
TK, first of all, you obviously, you put in a lot of time and effort.
And it's not me, it's the team.
Okay, the team.
Clinical wise, poor Steve. Business wise.
The other thing I want to ask you, why is the cost more reasonable? It's not often you get the best product for less money.
Why is that?
Why is the cost more reasonable in your estimation? It's not often that you get the best product for less money.
It is the most expensive.
That's the bottom line.
That's the three, it is the most expensive.
T-Systems, $372 is the most expensive one.
Well, yeah, but there is money coming back on that one.
Are you talking about the ROI information?
Right. Pardon me?
Are you talking about the ROI?
Return on investment.
Okay, so T-Systems Company has a team that actually comes out and analyzes your facility's personal performance. And then they benchmark that as best they can to comparable facilities of like size, of if you're rural or versus city, your volume. So they try to match it up as close as possible so that they are doing things compared. And they've been doing this over a period of years. So initially, I think they started with something like 500 charts. They would do an analysis. And then they would back that number down. They backed it down to 50 charts and found that gave them an accurate depiction of what the facility would be looking at. So they actually brought the number back up. So there is a systematic approach to the return on investment. The other two facilities, unfortunately, are not in a position where they're providing return on investment estimates at this time. But that in part is due because T-Systems has the coding technology to assist the staff with their specificity of their documentation. So we might be performing a service, but if we don't discuss it to the detail that CMS is looking for, we can't bill the maximum amount. So this system has the ability to alert us lifetime before that chart is closed that, hey, did you include this? Now, it's not forcing them to fabricate information, but it is alerting them to that, to capture that information at the time of service so that we can include that information. And this is based on CMS's guidelines, I want to say 1995, 97. They have not come out or finalized the new, because they're moving towards having just that 199-212 through 214 being kind of, or the, kind of like a mid-level. Right now they have, how many, is it 5 steps? So right now it's at 5 steps, and I think they're moving to 3 where they're going to consolidate the middle ones. But this is all things that are proposed, and there's no finalized rulings. But basically what they do is they tie their coding information, and they base that on CMS's guidelines. So what that will help us do is to secure that we're compliant with our documentation, and it's a peace of mind to know that we're being reimbursed what we represented, and that we're not making any errors in that, and we are being recognized for the service that we're providing.
When CMS does come out with these guidelines, how does that impact us if we have these systems? Do we?
They update their coding.
Pay for it, update it? Or
They come through with periodic updates, but it's not an extra service level charge. We're included in that 334, and they do periodic updates, and kind of like, and they will be responsible for updating our system when they do that. We did ask them about their downtime for such updates, and they approximate 4 hours, which is a significant difference based on CPSI's current performance.
And then there's also in the section where it outlines the IT and interfaces. I noticed there are a lot of things that are listed as optional in some systems.
Yes.
Like medication, bidirectional orders, and so I was wondering, are we going to be including any of those?
So if, I did get a quote, what they do is they lump the allergies, medications, and medication reconciliation into one interface, and it is $30,000, it's 10 grand per component in essence. But at this point in time, evidence system has their own issues they're dealing with and enhancing. So with their own, with evidence-based system, not quite finalized, it doesn't make sense to add an interface onto something that's not finalized and still in development, because then you're creating a larger opportunity for error in this. But it's something that we could look at in the future.
Well, I'm just curious because they've got like a problem list, optional for T-System, but integrated for EPID as an example, or immunizations, optional for T-Systems.
Correct.
Integrated for EPID. So if EPID doesn't have existing, how can they have an interface?
They have it existing as information exists. It's how well does it work? So say, for example, right now in the ER, when we're doing the medication reconciliation process, there's certain steps. If the steps are done out of order, or say there's an urgent event and a step is missed, that leaves potential consequences for when the patient returns to the clinic. And so rather than complicate the matter, because it's not clear and concise right now and working well within itself, we didn't want to add that at this point.
Okay.
It's not something that we wouldn't look at, it's just,
Well, I'm just trying to figure out then if I'm a physician in the clinic, how am I going to know this information?
so what happens is your emergency room visit will interface, that's the note from both the doctor and the nurse, and we can create it so that they are notified of the visit, as well as that note will let them in.
But the med reconciliation still depending on the doctor's spot there.
Well, no. There's a level of that. So when they come into the clinic, the medical assistant first brings the patient back, takes their vital signs, and does the med list review to see, are there any changes? Have you added any new medications? Have you discontinued any medications? Are there any change in doses in your medications? So right now,
But the
there's,
system doesn't red flag things.
no. Even right now, the system doesn't red flag those. That is a manual review that the medical assistants do with the patient. And then the physician comes in and then does an additional review of medications with the patient. So that would not be changed, and they would have the ER report available that where the ER physician can indicate this medication was started, they had a hypertensive event, this dosage was increased or decreased based on the outcome for the patient. So we still have an ER note to cross-check how they might be updating
So
that patient.
my real question is this within anyone's comfort zone? Is what we're trying to do in terms of physicians?
I think for sure it is, because nobody's gonna trust a record from someone else for medication. You're always gonna want to reach
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But don't you agree, I mean, you would never just take it for granted that a list was correct. You are gonna always ask the patient what they're taking, regardless. I mean, that's the one thing that we do on every visit.
And I just want to let you, that not just T-Systems or Evident, all the EHRs are continually trying to make things more efficient, more accurate. Depending on how the programs are performing, we change our workflow. We'll add levels of review or modify something that we're doing to try to ensure the accuracy of the patient history. And as they enhance the program, I just want to let you know, Evident is working on this. I'll go into more detail a little bit later about the general things that they're looking at, but Evident is working on enhancing the med rec and the med list as far as efficiency and accuracy and services. All the EHRs are doing that on a continuing basis, and also in coordination with what CMS and SureScripts and all of these other regulatory and organizational bodies are putting on the providers. So it's something that we would definitely look at in the future. We just don't think that for the cost versus what we're doing now, that it will provide that extended benefit at this point.
I guess my next question would be, for you, Steve's not here, so how does this get paid for?
So when we're going to talk about it in the budget, under the capital expenditure, we did do a placeholder for an ED module. And through all the research that TK and the team has been doing, and the issue with the physicians and their request for T-systems, I feel that T-systems is the better system right now. That hands down, T-systems is what we need to look at. And to your point, can we afford it right now? My concern is with, and I will talk to you about Dr. Slay giving her resignation. That position down is how are we going to pay for it? And that is a concern for me. So, I want to make the recommendation of yes, I would like to see T-systems, but can we really pay for it?
So I would also like to, Steve's back. Steve, did you want to make a comment about the electronic health record for the emergency department?
I think from when we first started talking about this in this form, finance has said that this is really a clinical decision. This is these folks over here telling us we need this. And I said we should never do this to chase that ROI number. I think that ROI number is very subjective, but it's real in some regard. So if the clinicians say this is something we have to have, and this is an immediate need of the facility, then T-Systems is obviously the comparative choice. And I think that the ROI that we will achieve would support the cost, the $400,000 on the $2.4 million. So again, it's with these folks over here in the front row, and here's Dr. Walls from your experience working in the emergency department with CVS, tell us, is this something we have to have and we have to have now?
You know, and I appreciate those comments, and I understand the current importance of doing this. The question then becomes timing, can we do this right at this moment? And I would appreciate the recommendation from Linda related to, yes, now is the time, no, it's not the time for the board to vote on that recommendation.
Well, I would just like to report to you that we did have a finance committee meeting earlier this week. And the recommendation, the finance committee is made up of Steve and Linda and Rich and myself. And the recommendation of the finance committee was to put it in the capital budget for next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Is there any way, is this payable on delivery, or can you, I mean, our money out in loans is really becoming very small for our income. Do they offer alternative plans for getting?
Yeah, they did, and basically what they do by giving us this price for paying it all under the timing that TK mentioned, the 25, the 50, whatever, is that they discount our money. So we're gonna pay it's like if you take the lottery in a lump sum versus payments over time. So they discounted the cost to us. If we wanted to do it over payments, like monthly payments, then it would add up to a bigger number.
How big? 100,000?
No.
Okay.
No, my recollection was it was like $30,000. It's basically the interest we would earn over 5 years on $300,000, so it's not a lot.
So do we have that accounted for in the budget that we're looking at today?
We do, this would be a capital purchase, where we would treat it as capital. We don't have a capital budget proposed to you guys for this meeting, no. This is just an operations budget. And an element of CPSI, which we wouldn't recommend that we hire at this point, based upon the addition of the system, would have an operational piece, whereas T-Systems would capitalize the whole cost as an asset.
Rich, have any questions? or
Rich, they want to know if you have any comments.
No, Dave, you recited the decision of the finance committee properly. We decided that at this particular point in time, looking at the economics, that we should defer this decision until next year. And I agree.
To our next fiscal year, so meaning incorporating it into our upcoming budget process?
It would be a capital budget item that we would put in for next year, and that doesn't mean in July, that means next year sometime.
I think it doesn't need to be firmed up which year it is, calendar year.
It is my position that we haven't been making budget lately. If anybody looks at the financial report, we shouldn't be spending $400,000 at this moment in time, particularly when we're short a provider.
Or 2 or 3.
Right. My main concern is having enough providers in our community to provide the services that our community needs.
Agreed.
I think, can we agree that we can take up this discussion of budgeting for this and see how the budget looks with this line item for our upcoming fiscal year?
Well, I think we could do that, yeah. The ER doctors are here. How urgently is this needed?
Well, I'd like you to all consider, this is Dr. Mellon for Rich, a different way of looking at this. Everybody around the table here knows that critical access hospitals are struggling to survive, and either by cost cutting or by getting a new profit center. And I'd like you to start framing this a little differently as making the ER the new profit center for this hospital. And I think the tool for that is the T system. And you go like, well, what can that bring to change things? Well, I'll tell you what it can bring. Doctors are good at clinical work, but when it comes to coding and keeping up with the bureaucrats as they put hurdles and the different barriers to what they'll pay to cut costs on their side, doctors don't keep track of that. The T system does. And just so you know, in my younger days, I had abundance of energy, and I went out and got an MBA, and I built a couple of businesses to high profit and sold them. So, you know, wrestling with costs and profits is not new to me. And the T system, if you'll look back here at the experience of some of these other hospitals that TK checked with, you'll see that most of them paid it off in a year. And after that, if you can pay off $300-some thousand a year, then every year after that, you can look forward to that as profit. And what the T system, just to drive home the point about clinicians and how this helps you, the T system drives the chart not only for quality and helpful in the safety of patients, but the coding aspect is remarkable. This is built just for ERs, and they build it to make sure that they keep up with what all the bureaucrats are trying to put in the way in terms of barriers of what we have to record in order to get paid for a certain amount. And they keep up with that, and they force the doctors, as they look at a problem, to document what's needed to maximize the coding there. And they're doing it because they're not doing the service. The doctors just don't know the wording to use or the phrases that work. And for instance, at Scripps, we paid a company to do our coding for us, and they came every other month to tell us what kind of wording we should use when we're making critical care, how we had to word it just so, and had to put the time involved. And there's a lot of critical care that goes on in our ER over there now that's missed, and those are huge amounts of money. And Steve, if you'll tell us kind of, you know, the bottom line there about patient services isn't, the ER contributes a great deal to that, does it not?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, right now, we've gone upside down, and we'll talk about this in the budget, that we used to drive more of our outpatient revenue from hospital outpatient services, and now we're driving it through the ER.
Yeah. But I think that number can grow actually as we code better and take advantage of what we're really doing for the patients. And I think as far as as I moved from, I've always worked with various numbers of hospitals, but as I moved into locum tenens work, I worked with all of them: Cerner, Epic, Theme, E-Power Systems, you name it, and T-Systems. And it is by far the best quality and the best in terms of pushing coding. And as that TK included in your materials, that black book market research, and if you'll note, the top overall emergency room ambulatory EHR for the last 5 years in a row is a T system. And if you look at in comparison with other types of systems, it beats them by a mile. So I feel sure that we're not just, you know, being fed a line by the company, but that if you look at the experience of those two other providers that are using it, they recoup their money in a year. And that means additional profit every year thereafter. So the longer you put it off, the longer it'll take to start appreciating those kind of profits. And I think this is an important phase for this hospital to take advantage of higher income from their ER. And this is the way to get there, as far as I'm concerned.
I certainly appreciate that.
And what really impressed me was the safety issues.
The safety issue.
Yes, definitely. That orders do not get missed, which they do now occasionally, because I have to run around and tell someone that I've put an order in. And that does not happen in the T system. So it's not just more efficient, I think it is safer.
I really think, my opinion is that it should be put in the capital budget for next year keeping in mind that the capital budget is a placement for an expense, a possible expense. It is not mandated and often gets moved to the next year. But we recognize the need, and it really is, in a way, disconnected from the budget. It is a budget in itself, the plan for the future.
Well, the board's going to have to make a tough decision. It's obvious we need to do something about the emergency department, and it's also obvious that this is a very expensive proposition. But I don't think that we should keep delaying a decision.
And I'm not going to talk all the time, but if indeed it works, that you're going to have an expense up front and then you're going to be better. I don't understand why we don't use some financing, because if we pay off the first year, we're going to have more money the other years that we can then pay down the rest.
So are you thinking of funding through the state, California, the funding that we got previously for 2.5%?
Well, I don't know if that's possible, but yeah, if we could get 2.5%, I think it.
Through the process that our clinic and funded through.
We just pay those off, we can absolutely look at that.
Is that what you're asking, is if we can look into seeing if that would make sense for us to do?
Yeah, but I think that it would be reassuring if we voted to put it on the capital budget again, realizing that we are not hooked to do that. Or say, let's have the budget discussion, and at the end of that, okay, now, can we put it in the capital budget? If people would be more comfortable to do.
When would the payments start hitting? When would we have to start making the payments on this?
And the upfront model, the first one is July 31st.
Based upon an install event.
Well, then the install date is anytime between that and October. The final payment would be due in October. But this is the upfront payment. If you want, I can attempt to get a monthly estimate.
Well, no, I was just wondering because it sounds like it'll hit our next fiscal year anyway.
It will hit the fiscal, but it won't hit 2020. It'll be 2019, but it'll be the next fiscal budget. When you guys are talking about calendar year versus fiscal year, it will hit fiscal 1920. It will hit calendar year in 2019.
Rich, does that make a difference to you?
Now, I have two questions of Linda.
Yes.
Linda, have you talked to the hospitals that have had this significant return on investment? And if so, are you convinced that we will have it at Seneca and you're betting your job on it? And number two, is there another intermediate step that we could make to capture the money that we're losing without having to make a $400,000 investment?
So I'm gonna start with the second question first, because that's an easier one to answer. We've already put into place Royston team, Sadie's team, admissions, and on the coding side, they've already put into place ways to capture some of the, and I'm gonna call them lost charges. And one of the examples would be IV starts and stops. We were missing that entire fee for IVs because we were failing to put the required documentation of what time started the IV, what time stopped the IV, and then there's some verbiage in there that you have to put in order to capture that reimbursement through coding. We were missing that. So that team has now put that into place where they're doing, we call it quality control, not quality assurance, not performance improvement, just QC. Checking if it was being done. And that's what they're doing now, is trying to capture some of that reimbursement. So that's an example of some of the pieces that they put into place already to look at how can we capture that. What we're missing is when we have some of the ER physicians who are in, they're here today, they do their documentation, and tomorrow, when when some of the folks who are looking at the QC, such as, and I'll use Royce, is doing a QC on the chart the next day, and he was actually there, and he saw what was going on during this critical patient, doctor's gone, and it's, oh, but we forgot to say we did this, this, and this, that would maximize some reimbursement. It was done, it just wasn't documented to the T the way that it needs to be documented, so we can get reimbursement. So the answer is yes, we put some pieces in place to capture this reimbursement. Some of it, we're still having challenges on how can we do the just-in-time piece of it. Would I bet my job on if we put T-systems in place today, would we get this return on investment that is documented here?
No.
No. Will we get a better return on investment if we put T-systems in? Yes, but you also have to realize then you're looking at also, we have to have an interface with CPSI. Is that interface going to go smoothly? Because you've got two different systems. We're already dealing with a three-party system of when we purchased otoscopes, that there's Microsoft interface to Evident interface to, and I forget, what's the third one? There's three different interfaces. That's not working. So anytime you do interfaces, you're at risk. But would I bet my job that if we put T-systems in place, I can tell you, I know that the ER doctors would come to this board and tell you, if you're going to fire Linda because she put T-systems in place, you're going to lose us. Because we want T-system, and you better not fire Linda because she said get T-system.
Amen.
I would bet my job on that.
And part of that question was, have you spoken to the districts that?
Yes, and it's a mixed bag. There's,
And who were they, where were they?
well, I talked to the system that put in, at Orchard. I talked to John Halby about, and he doesn't have T-system. He went from T-system to Evident. He loved the T-system, but they just have Evident, so they're doing Evident now, but they also had 5 different interfaces they were using, so of course, they like CPSI better because of the interface, but they liked T-system. The T-system folks I talked to, and I'm sorry, I did not bring those notes, TK might have them for me. They like the T-system. It's exactly what these physicians are talking about. It's more efficient for them, it's more efficient for the nursing. Some of them had T-system to Evident, some of them didn't have Evident.
Rich, we talked to a facility out of Illinois, and actually the guy that, the Dr. Mellon's peer there, that he also worked with Northwestern University, and he used it there as well. I think, hell, I'll bet my job that we can at least cover the cost of it. I think that covering the cost of it is, I don't think, a problem. But again, if we're just doing this for financial, then we have to create a priority for doing this. We still don't use CPSI to.
No, wait a minute, we're not just doing anything for financial, we're also a healthcare service. So, but we cannot just put financial on the back burner. We have to afford to keep the doors open, right?
Correct.
You know, the facility that we talked to get references, who provided the names of these facilities?
Well, of course, the vendor.
Okay, have we gone to other facilities that the vendor didn't suggest? Whenever I've done site visits during my career in health IT, I've looked at numerous sites. Many of them were not recommended
Rich,
by the vendor that's trying to show off their best site.
Rich, our first site review with T-Systems, actually I didn't include them on here. So the two that are on the page were phone conversations. Our first site discussion or review was an on-site review, and it was with a facility in Nevada, and they were not recommended by T-Systems. That was our specific request to reach out to that site.
That's good work. Look, I have no doubt that T-Systems is an excellent, functionally good system. My concern goes back to it, in spite of what Steve says, the 400,000 plus is a big investment. And I'm concerned that can we afford it right now? I don't think so.
But if it pleases the board, I can find out more information as to what it would be if we paid it monthly versus putting that all out.
It's still the same 5-year investment.
It is the 5-year investment, but hopefully the issues that we're dealing with now will have been resolved within that 5 years. So that the pressing matters that might be needing some of our financial support would have been resolved, and it wouldn't be as a big hit in one moment.
What other type of conversation do board members have?
I'm wondering if you would restate what the finance committee's recommendation was.
The recommendation was to put it in a capital budget and reconsider next year.
To do whatever we can as an intermediate step to make sure we capture those charges or improve documentation or do whatever is necessary so that we can make it a more effective and efficient emergency department.
But part of the problem is that we don't know what we don't know. In other words, especially for critical care documentation, there's exact verbiage that we don't know.
Okay. Point well taken. But we have to make a decision here. I sure would love one. I don't think we can just put this on the back burner. We need to decide something. We've been talking about it for several months now.
Okay, I move that the proposal for the ED system be placed on the capital budget for the year ending. When does the out of the budget, out of the motion for when does the fiscal year stop now?
June 30th, 2020, so July 1st.
June 30, 2020.
June 30th. That, okay. Be placed on the capital budget and be evaluated before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Could you read back her motion?
Lord help you.
The proposal for the ED be placed in the capital budget and be evaluated before the end of the fiscal year, 6/30. You should probably put the name of the system in the motion.
Yes, please help me with that.
System, yes.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you just said.
We replaced my naming of the company in the proposal with the proper name.
The proposal.
Okay, what if a year from now there's a better system?
Better name, yeah.
Yeah, but Rich says, what if a year from now there's a better system?
Say what?
He asked, what if a year from now there's a better system?
Well, the capital budget isn't mandatory.
So, we're talking about.
I put the name of the system in.
Wait, I can't
What
listen.
we're saying is,
Just a second, Rich.
obviously fix the system that the providers want.
It's a T system, right?
Yeah, but he's saying just leave it generic as the age, as the emergency room.
Would you clarify your motion, please?
I'll withdraw the motion I made.
Okay.
I move that we approve for placement in the capital budget and to be voted on before the end fiscal year 2019. The proposal.
2020.
No, no.
Hang on, she wants us to, she's saying that she wants it put in the capital budget for 1920, but she wants us to vote on the capital budget. We'll meet next month, vote on next year's capital budget. Yeah, that's okay.
So, the proposal is for the TC system.
No.
What?
The motion should be that we'll move into the capital budget the acquisition of an emergency department system in an amount not to exceed $400,000. Yeah.
I withdraw my motion. I withdraw my motion.
That's my job too.
You placed it in the capital budget, right, with your motion?
So without making a motion, what my thought is that we'll put a line item in the capital budget that we're going to acquire an emergency department system, and we'll put up to $400,000.
I think the doctor's recommendation should be in there. Dr. Brown,
Why would you leave it generic? Because we'll have this fight again.
yes.
If we don't identify the, do you have a reason for that, Steve?
Because what it then does is it encumbers, if you will, $400,000 to get an emergency department system within the next fiscal year, 1920. Therefore, we say, okay, we're ready to pull the trigger on this acquisition. And at that time, we've got $400,000 to play with, and who are our choices? T-Systems or whatever. And we made our decision. Has anything changed? I mean, it's given consideration to Rich's concern that that when we make our ultimate decision to acquire a system, it still is the best, and that we've said we know we can get an excellent system for $400,000. That we're just under.
That's ignoring the position of the emergency room doctors and the staff.
I think we can get a motion and vote on it.
I'll stay
So
on
if
it.
somebody wants to state a motion, we will then ask for a second and then we'll vote on it. So I'm up to hear a motion.
Somebody else want to try? I'll be glad to try again.
Okay, so I'll move that we set aside encumber $400,000 from electronic healthcare system for the emergency department in the next year's capital budget. Correct? Fiscal year 1920.
Okay. If that is the motion,
I'll second.
then it's seconded. Can I have votes now? Terry?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Dana?
No?
Ken?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. We will have a capital budget that will include an electronic health record for the emergency department.
And this was putting aside $400,000 for the EHR and ED in 20 fiscal year capital budget.
We're not going to talk about this next month.
Thank you, TJ.
Hang in there, guys. We'll have some. Don't give up hope.
I really appreciate what you said.
Dr. Mellon, everybody here appreciates your input.
Very well.
And you don't have to stay if you don't want.
I've got some more on that paper.
Steve, under the financial reports, I'm getting a call.
I can talk about that. So last month I let you know that the Cohn family donated $10,000 to us to be used on patient, well, it would be used on board discretionary patient funds. So far we had a suggestion from staff to use it as an adjunct with the wish list to get another EKG machine in the clinic. We're not ready to bring forward the full, I'll call it the wish list like we did with auxiliary for this Cohn family money yet, because we were in the throes of trying to get the budget together, and we kind of, Steve and I, Karen, overwhelmed the staff on, let's get the budget done before we got evaluations in, so you'll get it next month for what the staff and the physicians would like to see that one used for.
There was no stipulation what it was to be used for, right? It just said at the board's
It's
discretion.
the board's discretion.
Okay. All right, it looks like, Steve, we're gonna talk about more money. More or less. Are you gonna project this?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. On my head.
Okay, so Rich, you're gonna be at a small disadvantage, well, maybe not. That you've got the 2 slides per page, and I think for the benefit of the audience and all here, we're gonna go with a 1 slide per page, but I think we should be able to work through it okay.
No problem.
How's that look in the back row?
Beautiful.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we're talking about next fiscal year, 1920 budget. And as I did last year, I wanted to run you through some historical numbers, and I truly think that not the whole story, but boy, a big part of the story is told in these first few slides. So this is our historical gross patient revenue. And you can see that 14 to 15, we're just over 25 million. We jumped in 16 to just under 28 million. Then we dropped down in 17 and 18 to just over 26 million. And then we're projecting this year to be under just 28 million. Similar story, net patient revenue. Our numbers kind of fall fairly consistently. Excuse me. Our adjustments to revenue, that is. So here, sorry, Rich, we're on slide 3, so it's probably your page 2. Historical operating expenses, or slide 4, page 2. So you can see that the expenses bounced around in 14 and 15, and then they went to, in fiscal 16, 15 million, 665, 512, actually went down a little bit in 17, then went up in 18, and have grown again in 19. And if you remember, when we looked at the revenue went down from 16, 17, and 18, and went back in 19, but here you can see that we've had a progression of growth of expenses and really no additional revenue. As always with healthcare, your biggest, 2/3 if not more of your cost is going to be labor. And so here we've got labor kind of again bouncing around 5 million in 14 and 15, and then 16, it went to 5,275,000. Not much of a jump in 17, then a jump in 18, and a jump in 19 to where we're now at just under 7 million. And again, this is what's driving that the changes in the total operating expenses. Is when we go to Professional fees, they've stayed pretty consistent from, during this period of time. You have the jump up in 16 to 4.8 million, and then they've kind of just stayed about there, estimating at 4.7 million for 2019. So moving on to the next slide, other expenses, again, they're fairly consistent. There's a little bit of a jump again in 2019, and of course from 14, 15 to 16. So if we go on to the next slide, which is operating income loss. Going back to 2014, we lost from operations, and this is my restatement of the financials so that I put all of the supplemental payments below the operating line. I pull them out, and I go ahead and gross up the payment and then show the intergovernmental transfer, and you'll see that in another presentation or another representation. So this is our true operations. If there was, I think we've always asked, what happens if there was no supplemental income? We'd still get other non-operating revenue. We get the taxes and the donations and things like that. But this is what our operations looks like. So from 2014, we lost just over 900,000. 2015, we lost just under 600,000. 2016 was a really, really good year, and we just only lost just under 137,000. So that's a strong accomplishment for a small facility.
Can I interrupt you there?
Absolutely.
And ask you what was different?
What was different?
in the year?
Revenue.
Okay, and as a result of more providers, less providers?
A combination of providers. In 2016, we had Dr. Salady came on. We had Dr. Ward, and we had Dr. Walls and Dr. Ware when they were still practicing all aspects of their practice. So you had 4 strong providers, 4 in position. Then we had a nurse practitioner.
I think we also were doing surgeries and
Absolutely.
a lot more inpatient volume.
Absolutely, Dr. Walls. We had
Orchids,
Yes.
once a week, we had Dr. Sabat, pain management, podiatrist.
we had the podiatrist, and it, just as Dr. Walls said, so we had Dr. Jensen, of course, and we had an orthopedic, and then we had the podiatrist. But as Dr. Walls said, because we had 4 very strong family practice doctors, we did have a higher inpatient volume. And kind of the comment I made to Dr. Mellon, that back then we were seeing more of our flow of patients going through the hospital outpatient and the clinic and the hospital outpatient to see their services. Now we're seeing more of the flow of patients, at least in 2019, going through the emergency room. So, so here's the magic number, the operating margin. We're on the historical operating margin percentage. So 2014 was 6.5% loss, 15 was at 4.57. As you can see here, 16 was just under 1%. Again, phenomenal. 17 was 9.67, 18 was 13.32, and now we're projecting 20.33 for 2019.
Now, where would you, I'm sure you want to see us at 0, but where would you say would be a range that would you consider acceptable? Just from your experience.
Assumes he's experienced this.
I wish there was a straightforward answer.
Ideally, we'd be at 0 or in a positive, right?
With the investment we've made in human resources here, I think that it's hard to get too close to a break even, and it's also challenging to get close to what I would think a target margin would be, like 4 to 5% loss. I think that would be nice. But we have made a great investment in people. And if that could translate into revenue ultimately, then I think we could theoretically, with our market, we could get close to a break even. But right now, with the expense load we have and the inability to reduce any of that, I think we're highly challenged to bring this down much without a solution on the revenue side.
Right, that would be my argument would be, that's where we would want to see it, would be on the revenue side.
Yeah. There really isn't much we can do on the expense side because we've made that investment. Now we're looking for that return on the investment. And we'll continue to make investments. Discuss. So here's the non-operating revenue that's, quote unquote guaranteed. This is taxes, this is donations. We seem to have a really nice stream of some level of philanthropy within this area, and it just keeps continuing. So this is, you can see it's pretty consistent here. The interest income is starting to go up now that we're investing our money. Our cash has gone up, and we're investing it and getting over 2%. So that's bumped up that number a little bit as well. And then finally, here's the supplemental payments net of the IGT for this slide presentation. We have another one that shows it. That shows the gross up of it. So you can just see how the supplemental payments have expanded or increased over time, and thank goodness, frankly. So, and that's how dependent we are on these programs to essentially balance our budget and keep us whole. So I'm going to try a trick here, if I can. So I believe it's the last page of your tab E, Rich, the electronic, the PDF. It's the very last page, and so it would be the same thing in the hard copy packets. So you can go to that. It should be the 5-year trend on the operating loss.
The last one on.
In your budget materials. So the Rich, have you gotten to this document? It's the operating budget, operating income loss trend for 5 years.
I'll get it.
Page 18 of 18 on tab E.
Okay.
Page 1 of 1. So here's the same information that we just went through. The only thing that wasn't present in what I showed you is the last column, which is our proposed budget. And there was also fiscal 14 and 15, which is really irrelevant to this analysis here. Here's fiscal year 16, which was really kind of our, whatever you want to call it, bellwether year, where we had very close to an operating break even. And you can see that the revenue was just under 28 million. And as I referenced, the revenue for 19 is just under 28 million. And then the 2 years in between, we had the decreases. Scrolling down to expenses that we can see here that operating expenses back in 15, again, were this 15 million, or 2016, were 15,665,000, that increased to 17,714,000. So again, we've had this kind of no gain on the revenue side, but significant gain on the operating expense side. And as we discussed, it's really coming from salaries and benefits. Currently, through our step increases, we get 4%, and then we talked about the union this month, or this year negotiated 2%. So generally speaking, we've given a 6% increase on salaries, and 6% on $6 million is $350,000, $400,000. So we just had that growth just from what our standard benefit package provided. At the same time, we had pay scale adjustments to be competitive. We have to increase the minimum wage scale, and it pushes some of the other scales up. So we've had numerous adjustments to where our salaries have increased. And again, this investment that we've made to be competitive, to retain employees in a very difficult market. We're trying to get people to come up here and relocate and live and stay here. So one of the things, as Dr. Walls had mentioned, when we look at 2016, our inpatient revenue, so this is the bed charge plus all of the ancillary services that come about due to a patient's inpatient stay. You can see in 16 we had $3.8 million, and here for this year it's down to $3 million. Now, we were fortunate, at least for a short period of time, that we offset this loss through the swing bed revenue. But the swing bed revenue is now at least temporarily gone away. But I was talking about that it seems here when we had the 4 practitioners working that were doing primary care, strong primary care, we were seeing more inpatient stays. So in the outpatient here, what you don't see that I mentioned here that's kind of interesting is we have kind of the same relationship here, is the outpatient has actually gone up a little bit, but what's happened is the revenue from hospital services has gone down approximately $2 million, while the emergency room revenue has gone up about $2.4 million. You know, you can't always draw a direct conclusion or summary from this because there's no predicting health demands, and sometimes it could just be there were more sick people, more very sick people. But when we're challenged to provide that primary care, then the ER becomes a place where that primary care is sought. And so that's something that's consistent again with the relationship we have here between the inpatient revenue from 16 to 19. Long-term care is pretty, we've got 16 beds, they're usually full. But here down at the bottom, the RHC revenue has gone from $3.2 million down to $2.6 million. Again, some of that revenue increase, decrease, whichever way you look, it is from the specialist, whether it be ortho or podiatry that we don't currently have in 2019 or have ortho on a very limited basis. But our primary care has dropped $300,000. Decrease is $300,000. Now we've offset some of that impact by bringing telehealth on, which was a huge, great enhancement. But that's it. So I guess that's just kind of the story. Are there any questions or discussion about this at all? we're gonna just, now I was gonna go into the budget. Oh, do you want to talk about the elements of this? I just wanted to show this to kind of just, you know, when we put together a budget and we are projecting $3 million losses, this is how we got here. So, and as we look to approve a budget, you know, these are the things that we have to, I guess, understand so that we realize that, you know.
Well, I mean, as I'm looking at this, I'm wondering how accurate we are budgeting for our rural health clinic, considering we're budgeting to go up slightly from our estimated for this year, but we've declined from the prior years. I guess that would be one question that I would ask.
Yeah, we tried to, we basically made the rural health clinic flat, if you will. No change in the revenue. The increase you see there is from an anticipated increase in our telehealth revenue.
And we're also minus another provider.
Well, you know, we looked at that and we think that the volume that we're seeing this year can at least initially be absorbed by 4 providers, with Dr. Walls being somewhat not full-time. And then the solution to the revenue is to add that additional provider in a couple capacities, and we'll talk about that a little more.
We were also looking at, and Teresa, I forgot to introduce you. Teresa Nelson is in the audience. She's our nurse practitioner. Yeah, right now she's on a local status. We are working with you to get her on to be ours. And when we looked at the numbers with Dr. Slaney deciding to move closer to family, we've already put into place Teresa's being introduced to some of her patients, and she's taking on some of her patients, so there won't be that lost revenue, because in that one office, it wasn't a full-time office when Teresa got to it, so now we're trying to move some of those patients over, so we're looking at some of those stop gaps.
So we'll be talking more about where we're planning to increase revenue as we get further in this.
Okay, so did you guys read that in the back?
Yes.
No, I'm going to stick with the 2-pager for Rich, and then also, so I believe we're going back to the early part of the presentation, and then if this is page 7, this would probably be slide 13. Okay, so Rich, we're at the top of page 7. Okay, the operating budget for 1920. Okay, so as you guys just saw, we're projecting basically little to no change in revenue. Other operating revenues pretty much similar, and salaries and wages will go up, but other operating expenses will come down, and we'll get into some detail on that. So we're projecting an operating loss of $2,836,805 versus a projected loss in this current fiscal year of $2,993,384. Non-operating revenues pretty similar to this year, and then the supplemental payments in a net amount of $3,003,000. So a bottom line net income of $1,203,195 versus a budget, or versus an estimated this year of $1,340,150.
How confident are we in that supplemental payment amount?
Extremely confident. They're all approved. We have estimates on the numbers. There's nothing for us to believe that 1920 we're fine.
Is there anything yet about the following year?
Everything is the prime grant program ends, and to us, that's about a net of around, on average, $700,000 a year. Everyone's trying feverishly, or whatever the word is, to get a replacement for it. I mean, there's a lot of support for it. So the one thing we know that's really at risk is the prime grant, just because it has a defined end right now. Yeah. And then the others, we're actually the rate range that we're reflecting there, the big rate, the rate range, the only rate range, the 3,000,005 netted by 1,000,003, so a net positive impact of 2,000,002. That's for fiscal year 18-19. They're 1 year behind. So, and we just signed the paperwork on that one, and they are pursuing ahead on 19-20. So we know at least we're going to get 18-19's approved, and we'll get that one in this fiscal year. So as far as supplemental payments, we're looking good for 1 year. And beyond that, I mean, frankly, this would, any elimination or reduction in supplemental payment would be disastrous for the
Isn't that, just the prudent thing to do is to focus on our service generated revenue?
Yeah, well, you know, it's not only that, it's that if we truly are going to build a replacement facility, which we have to, and I want to, and all the above, we have to improve that operating loss number. That's going to be troublesome going out to the capital market with those types of numbers. And we should see. Well, maybe, you know, there's the silver lining there is that when the Whitfleet report comes in and it shows that we have a lot of leakage and out-migration of services from here, then we can specifically address that, saying that, gosh, we see you guys leaving, and, you know, we have to be able to provide that service, or what we do, or, you know, is it simple, is it challenging, or what is it? So we'll know for sure when we see some hard numbers. Okay, so that was okay. So going to slide 15. So talking about the operating loss, as I mentioned, it is, you know, it's a decrease. It's $156,000 over the estimated. We do have a decrease in net patient revenue. It's really pretty much focused around the hit we took on swing debt. And the 226 decrease in net patient revenue is a combination of the decrease in gross and a decrease in the adjustments as well. Small increase in other operating revenue. Those are kind of estimates. That's our 340B program and some other direct grant monies we get for quality programs. There is a proposed increase in salaries and wages, significant decrease in professional fees, medical and other, a decrease in contract labor, and an increase in other operating expenses. So
So the pro fees and the contract labor are the ones that we keep estimating also. So how are we projecting a decrease for those?
Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. So here's a discussion about revenue. We have a decrease over fiscal year ending 19, and talks about this, that the decrease in gross revenues from the swing bed decrease of an average of 1 patient a day to less than 1. We're going to try and get MRI here every other week, and then telemedicine. We anticipated a continued increase in that. We could do as much as we wanted if we could find the providers for that, especially mental health. And then in this version of the budget, I just put the long-term care average daily census at 15. You know, we're already at 16. I think, you know, probably be a fairer number would be 15.5, but I'm splitting hairs a little bit there. And then long-term care, we had some revenue in, that they were doing an occupational therapy down there. No rate increase this year. We looked at, we had a market comparison, and we think our rates are fine right now. Except that the utilization for swing bed MRI, telemedicine, and long-term care is noted above. And then again, the adjustments of revenue are going to be fairly similar to what we historically have experienced. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Labor costs. We're going to have a $236,497 increase in salaries, and an increase in benefits. Benefits didn't go up as much because we have some new hires, we have some open positions that we will be filling in the near future, and it's difficult to completely identify what their benefit will be, from health insurance to selecting HSA or whatever they might do.
So is the salary increase based on a percent, or what is, or is that just based on the step increases?
The salary is based upon, we've identified positions in every department. In most cases, it's an existing employee. There are a few where we have open positions that we're looking to fill. Then we take their current wage, and then we put a percentage increase to that. It says here that we've done a step increase. What we're proposing in this budget, because of our losses we're incurring, is we don't believe that we can provide more than the 4% step increase in the budget. Actually, and we don't care if the union wants to call half of that their efforts, that's fine. It doesn't make any difference to me. But bottom line is with the losses we're incurring, we can't be putting forth wage increases of greater than 4%. And we think that 4% is very fair when you consider that national inflation is 3 at the most. So it's covering cost of living.
What percentage of employees are eligible for step benefits?
For step?
Yeah.
Well, everybody but Linda, but some people are at the top of the scale, so I don't have an exact number on that one.
And the board can also voted to put in place increases or bonuses for those who have reached the top step. And Jim 5, the top, after the top of the step is 10 years?
No, they're at the top of their step basically after 6 years.
Okay, but the bonus that we're giving for the longevity folks?
Is 10, 15, 20, and 25, and 30.
Because one of the questions was, if you're at the top of your step and you've been there for so many years and you get nothing. And so that was what the board had voted on, so that we could do something for those people in longevity spots that have already hit the top of their steps.
One of the good things that I want to point out is that a lot of the RN staffing is pretty much at their top step, and that's the largest dollar volume for individuals. So that's a good thing. I don't know what the numbers are, but that's a good thing.
So, here's what's really driving. Here's what's really driving. Our average hourly wage has increased from $31.98 to $33.48. So $1.50 doesn't sound like much, but when you put it to 103 FTEs, it's $350,000, $400,000. And we've seen, as you can see there, we went from $29.16 to $31.98, and it's been very, very consistent. And that increase from 19 to 20 is $1.50, so that's just under just under 5%. So you can see that with the step and then the union negotiated increase and the scales that we've been growing our payroll by 6 to 8%.
And then how's the payroll going to be affected by the increase in minimum wage?
It always is. Jim can speak, he's the...
Well, every year is going up another dollar for the next 2 to 3 years, so that's 10%.
Yeah,
for those.
But how many of our employees are in that category?
Well, you have to look at it in terms of what the union calls, what I call compaction. So you get a cook who makes the minimum wage. Now they go up a dollar, so their whole scale goes up a dollar. And now you've got someone who is in HIM now making the same as someone as a cook. So we have to consider what they do. They have to move them up, even though they're making 12 or 14, and they're already a dollar above. They should go with that dollar.
Right.
So it's all kind of relative as to how we do it. But I would say half the employees are affected by that. Yeah.
So for...
So we have accounted for that in this estimate though, right?
It's, I think we're okay if we can hold it to the step increase with the people that are at the end of the step and that, I think everything will come together. You know, we'll be fairly reasonable, it's like.
But is Jim saying that over this next year, half of our staff have to be bumped up?
To some degree.
I'm saying to a certain
And
degree.
that's outside the 4% though.
Yeah, but not everyone gets the 4%.
I see
So
what you're saying.
the other thing is that people get the 4% throughout the year. So it's not like everyone at the beginning of the fiscal year gets the 4%. They earn it on their anniversary.
And some will meet that threshold, and some won't, so that's why.
Keep them long enough, I'll figure this out. So we are reducing FTEs slightly from estimated just under 104 to 102.7. The FTE decreases are going to be in long-term care. Linda mentioned Pam Valencia, great resource, very fortunate to get. She looked at her staffing and said we were a little heavy, and working with Karen and Ashley and everyone, we come up with a staffing solution that still provides appropriate care that gives us a little relief. We are eliminating, it's 2.4, but it's the way that people don't always work full-time and have full-time positions. So when we do the budget, we put it back at full-time. So, but we're reducing 3 positions in the Lake Almar Clinic, and I'll discuss that in a future slide. And then we're having a small increase for nursing. Radiology, I don't know, the number might be going up after today, but this is very unfortunate. It's so hard to find techs up here, whether it's lab or radiology, and we may have found 2 techs. And so now, my preference would be to just have 2 people in the department with some per diem support. And Dave Geary says me too. But so now we may bring on 3 people in that department and work with the staggering of the schedule to where they can extend their hours, reduce call and callback time. And it's something we want to discuss with Dave Monday in the lab. And we'll talk about some of our revenue strategies by having that luxury, if you will, of that staffing. And then here we're budgeting for 5.60, and then environmental services. This is Linda McCurdy trying to keep positions full, and every time she can't fill positions, I say, well, let's just get a cleaning agency in here, and she says, oh, we have to have it approved by the union, and goes round and round, and so environmental services is not only housekeeping, but it's also maintenance and grounds and same thing. So 5.6 contract FTEs for hospital, nursing, and long-term care. We have budgeted for 2 sessions of the CNA education program. We swung and missed on the first go-round for lack of effort. It's difficult to get everything to work out, to find the people to take the class, get them to go through the class, then they have to take their test, and then they have to come here, and so it's,
So the folks that we put through didn't decide to stay?
Well, they have to pass a class, pass the test for written skills test, and once they do that, they have to decide that they weren't using the CNA program as a stepping down to get into the LVN, which are the RN. So unfortunately, with the group that we had, some didn't pass, some of them did, and then some of them are choosing not to be CNAs and to do something else. With this group of CNAs that we have. Is in here, did I say it right?
No, you said it right.
and not all of them are required to come work for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we revisiting kind of how we put that together?
Yes, we are.
So as I discussed in the finance report, this will be a piece where we're going to incorporate, I tried to budget contract labor by dollars only, and that just did not work. So we'll budget for both bodies and dollars. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Other expenses. So we are anticipating a decrease in the contract labor that we're currently experiencing in nursing and radiology. That is going to involve hiring new people, which you heard, looks like we've made it with radiology, and we're having some success with nursing as well. Here's the big thing is the decrease of $615,000 in professional fees. We budgeted to, we would like to discontinue the use entirely of locums providers. It's a financial disadvantage, and it's a competitive disadvantage, and it doesn't meet the needs of our community. So what we're planning to do is Linda mentioned about Teresa when she introduced her. We're in the process of making offers or negotiating offers with both of them to come on some non-locums capacity, whether that's independent contractor or employee, I don't care. We will be contracting directly with them, and that'll provide fairly substantial savings to us. And the big one is that what we plan to do, at least initially, is that we will combine Dr. Salehi's office with where Teresa Nielsen is practicing right now. And so we will no longer have Dr. Salehi's compensation in professional fees. And then finally, the ER physician rate where we have now that our combined compensation to providers to cover our emergency room is now contracted at $130. And there will be exceptions, but generally that's the rate. That's where we're getting our savings from. And it just shows, when we have to pay some company's profit to staff our organization, it just hammers us financially.
So in the clinic, we're talking about having 2 family physicians and 2 nurse practitioners. Is that what I'm hearing?
What we're looking at is we put a nurse practitioner in the walk-in clinic. So that's where one of them is. And then the other nurse practitioner we have right now, Teresa, is in the open office that was for So she has picked up that patient panel and is remaining on that patient panel. And so with Dr. Slade turning in her resignation, as I said, we're trying to move her patients over there while we're still recruiting for another full-time physician, which we'll talk to you about who we have in the works. We've got a doc coming up this weekend that is really interested. We've already, Dr. Wall was talking to him, so that position we're looking at putting in Dr. Walls because he's trying to transition out. So once we get that position in, then we will look at the numbers there for the next position.
So we'll send it to the office for a while.
Just for a while, yes.
Is that providing the amount of patient care that we need? I mean, I understand the cost of locums, it's huge, but we need to be serving our population.
Well, and that was the problem. When we looked at the numbers, the patient numbers for daily visits, they weren't there to support bringing in we tried it. We tried bringing in 2 different locum physicians. One was here 2 weeks, the next was here 2 weeks. We tried doing that to keep that office running full time. When Teresa first got here for the first couple of months, she was really busy, and then this last month she was seeing 2 to 4, maybe 6 patients a day. So those numbers weren't there right now. We have to build those numbers back up. So it's not cost effective for us right now, nor serve the community to bring in a locum until we bring those numbers back up.
So, it's hard to bring the numbers up if we don't have providers too, but are we saying that we're not going to be searching for someone to put in that office?
No. So let me backtrack so I guess I didn't explain it right. The position that we're looking at right now, we've got searches out for 2. We've got one that's right now very viable. That position we're looking at putting in for Dr. Walls. That's an immediate need right now. We have Teresa covering the one office, so that one's covered for right now. So that position we're looking at helping out Dr. Walls. Once we get that one in place, then we'll look again or continue the search for that second position while we're building up the community with the clientele. What we're saying is we're not going to be bringing in a locum into that office at that point because the numbers aren't there.
I understand that, yeah, the local people aren't going to come in on a regular basis.
So the strategy is essentially to kind of do this incrementally?
Yes.
So,
Because I don't think our community is appreciative of bringing in locums and then they leave. They establish a relationship with the provider and then that provider responds, we can't keep doing that for us. So the decision was made to do this in this step process.
this kind of goes to the whole kind of adage, build it and they will come, so when I said hire the folks as quickly as you can and let the community know that they're available, hopefully they start going over to wherever they go.
So if it's kind of what Steve alluded to with what we're dealing with right now with our entrance tech. If they fall into our lap, if we get a physician that wants to come here and we just hired another physician in, but we have one that wants to be here, well then we need to consider bringing them in because they're here. We're not going to say, oh no, wait, we're going to build our numbers up, then we'll bring them in.
Well, I think we'd be happy if they fell into our lap. We've been able to recruit them to begin with.
That would be fantastic, and that's what happened to us with this radiology person. We've been out recruiting for radiology, another tech, and all of a sudden we get 2. So are we going to turn one away? Those are the choices we have to make, whether it's radiology, whether it's physicians, whether it's nurses, whether it's a clinical lab scientist. That's what we have to look at. If they're coming to the community, they've interviewed with us, they like our medical staff, they like our staff, and they want to be here, then we need to entertain what it's going to take to keep them.
Ken, to your point though, we would, yes, not turn down a physician that presented, but we would be selective about the type of physician that we would bring on. We absolutely have to bring on a physician that can do some coverage. We don't want them to necessarily work in the ER and burn themselves out and not be there for the clinic. And the other thing is, we have to get a physician that will round on patients. As we've seen with the decrease in the inpatient services, because right now, even though we brought in emergency room physicians that keep our costs around 130, Dr. Walls and Dr. Ware are still doing a large amount of the backup call. And so bringing in a clinic-only doc that won't do that, no. I mean, once we'll.
So, and I should clarify that the physician search that we have out there right now is looking for a clinic provider that can do backup coverage, inpatient coverage, and skilled coverage. We're not looking for, at one point we were looking for a clinic provider that could also do ER. We have our ER staff now, so we don't need to find that versatile doctor that we already have in Dr. Weir and Dr. Walls. And I really don't mean that disparaging to any physician, but the physicians now are being more specific. I don't want to do ER, I only want to do clinic. I only want to do ER, I don't want to. So we're kind of fitting into what those positions are out there right now.
Just it would be really nice if we had someone in the community that could fill in the ER in a pinch, so we don't make, let's make a deal on if you show up, we will pay you. So it's just a little stability would be a wonderful thing. So, okay, so, and then the rest of the other expenses are fairly benign. One of the things in purchase service, we're budgeting to have more MRI service. What we really like to do though is we'd like to get permanent power for the mobile unit, because a generator sits out there and every time they show up they charge us $2,000 for it. So it's they come every other week. It's a $50,000 expense. And yet we could avoid. And IT, we brought on some additional purchase service, but we're going to have TK and Jacob develop a work plan for the department to phase out the purchase services and what we could take on ourselves. That's an area where we look at an area where we could possibly reduce some of our expenses. That's one area where we can do is by bringing more in-house, which we think we can. We added some functionality to our payroll service, which will help Jim and Kelly Pettigrew. We're projecting an increase in depreciation for some continued additions at the end of this year that will partially depreciate in fiscal 19 and will fully depreciate in 2020, and then the 2020 additions. This is a permanent decrease, the last one. No more paying locum travel costs and locum buyouts. It was a great investment to do, but the buyouts, because now we have the providers at a budget-friendly, reasonable cost. So net income. The net income will decrease over fiscal 19, and it's really due to the non-operating stuff, because we have a $156,000 decrease in the operating loss, which is a positive thing, less loss. Small increase in investment income because our cash will grow, and the tax assessment is just a wild guess. I mean, we keep it somewhere in the ballpark of what we've historical, but it can fluctuate whether it's a delinquent payment coming in. I just don't see assessed value going up that much around here. There's some home building, I guess, but not a lot of commercial. Small decrease in the other operating, and here's where the decrease from operating loss to bottom line loss is that our supplemental payments will go down. That the prime grant, we're only budgeting, let's say what we're budgeting on that, let's sort of lift that one real fast. So this year we had a benefit of $740,000, and then next year, we're estimating that, whatever that is, this year, we're estimating that we'll get just a $600,000 benefit. The prime grant tiers, it goes from $1.5 million down to $1.2 million as it ages out. So we got part of that $1.5 million, plus we got some extra money because we got a perfect score on our metrics, and some people dropped out. The rate range is estimated to go down just slightly, and then the supplemental payments, we have a little bit of a windfall this year, and so we're estimating that to come down $108,000. These are the other supplemental payments. We don't have much of a gauge on. The prime grant and the rate range, we have a really good idea of what the numbers are. So, okay. So let's just go into this discussion. Okay. So what are we gonna do about this? What's our plan? We've kind of talked about most of the pieces of this. With the decrease in the swing bed program, or the change in the swing bed program, we again have excess capacity and utilization within our inpatient unit, which includes the swing beds. So that's just a revenue opportunity right there. But in order to enhance the swing bed program, we need to get a therapy provider, and on the inpatient, we need to get people that will admit and follow patients, other than Dr. Wall's not aware. We get some admits from the ER providers, the ER group. The bulk of them come from Dr. Walls and Dr. Ware. Second goal is kind of an extension of my comment. Contract with a physical therapist to support the swing bed program and increase outpatient utilization. We're going to come back to you guys with thoughts for trying to expand our outpatient therapy program that we can accomplish within the OSHPAD guidelines and within the realm of financial reasonableness. So we will be bringing something to you in the very near future after the architects come here to give us their first report for the facility master plan about whether that means that we look at finishing out the other part of the second floor of the clinic, or we look at bringing in a modular building that could house Steve Brown and another provider in there. There's opportunity there because Steve is one person, and he is almost certainly not seeing every possible patient in the area, and that should bear itself out in the market study.
The facility that he's in couldn't handle the service you're talking about.
I don't think you can handle the providers and additional patients.
He's maxed out on space the way he has.
And to make it cost effective for bringing on additional person. Now, the good news is that our attempts to recruit here would be to bring in an employee, which would be at a substantial cost savings to the outside contractor model. So
And then right before we came into the board, something that Steve was unaware of is we have now got applications for occupational therapists and an occupational therapist aide. So we'll be able to start providing the occupational therapy service again as soon as we get them on board. But Steve didn't know that, that just happened.
We kind of discussed this, that the plan is to recruit a full-time physician to work with Dr. Walls and absorb patients from Dr. Salady and Suarez's panels that are seeking a physician provider. When we look at the NRC picker survey comments and other sources, that there are people that want to see a physician. And that's very difficult with our current situation. And so there are people that would go to that new provider along with that individual to, since right now, we staff lab and radiology 7 days a week, not 24 hours. We do it 10 to 12 hours a day, and then call. We do have 24/7 coverage through call. What we want to do is we want to start promoting Saturday outpatient services in lab and radiology. We have admitting registration staff here. There's no reason that we can't do that. The people are here. People that can't work during the week, whatever it is. This was on last year's proposal, but it's something we absolutely have to pursue. Whatever we want to call it, I don't care. But we need to look at providing certain outpatient services, mainly infusion therapy, that we can provide at the hospital within our licensing. That the staff is enthusiastic about doing.
I'm not familiar with infusion therapy, if anyone wants to enlighten me.
So they, you want to do that, right?
Infusion therapy? Sure. So that would be someone coming in for something like, say, albumin, which is a rare one. An albumin drip that takes an hour to 2 hours to drip in, and it's the nurse would have to start an IV possibly if they don't have one existing already.
Cancer therapy.
Sorry?
Cancer therapy comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, that's another one. Either way, though, the nurse would be responsible for that patient for the time that they're there, and it would just kind of be like another outpatient service. Well, it is an outpatient service, but IV therapy.
But also a treatment that's been already prescribed.
Yes.
Correct. Right.
One of the problems that we have, and Teresa, when you brought up cancer therapy, is depending on what chemotherapy drugs they are, you have to have a full-time pharmacist on site, and you don't. And that's how the oncologist, and that's one of the things that the community really wants us to do,
Yep.
and that we keep looking into it. But unfortunately, until we can get the oncologist here who will cover, the big part of that is to try to bring in an oncologist from Chicago over. He could do the initial order, and then our physicians would need to follow with that chemotherapy therapy as it happens. So we've been having some challenges with that. The bigger challenge is the pharmacist has to be on site to use the drugs. And then you have to have the chemotherapy nurse who has to administer those drugs. So it's something we're looking at. It's not going to be something that's going to happen in the next couple of years. It also is the change in our provider base. But so more for our infusion therapy, outpatient services, blood transfusions, IV therapy. So if you go into the clinic and Dr. Wall says, hey, Linda, you're dehydrated, you have influenza or whatever, but you're really dehydrated, I need to get 2 liters into you. Instead of going into the ER, you can write an outpatient order for 2 liters of fluid, and it can be done at the house.
And you can't do that now.
We can, we just don't have it as organized as it should be, because now it's dependent on, we have the nursing staff to give that service. Now, when the orders are given, it's, okay, right now we have something going on in the ER or whatever, so you can come back in 4 hours. The community doesn't like to be told to come back in 4 hours. So that's part of the service that Karen and Kim are working on to be more organized, so we can get it to our patients.
But we have a staffing in place already before, is what I think I've heard.
We're doing some of it. I mean, not what she's talking about, but we are providing infusion therapy on a limited basis right now. And I don't know the circumstances that dictate when we do the service versus whether on more of an elective or marketed basis, if you will.
More of a marketing basis.
And then, as always, never leaves, further improvement of the revenue cycle process. Okay, so this is kind of again of a repeat from last year, but I think it has a little more. Probably should have put a little something in there that I just think that finance, just needs to be really, we really need to, not pinch pennies, but we need to really be vigilant on our expense management and review staffing, look at where, be more looking at where we incur overtime and just really, like I said, micromanage labor.
Making sure we have the right people in the right staffing areas, and then if we have to do call-off or moving staff around, then we need to move staff around instead of just letting them sit. And we've not done a real good job of call-offs because, you know, that has its own issues, but with the financial picture that we have right now, and with the decrease in numbers and volumes, that's something that we have to start looking at, and we have started looking at. We're looking at how can we flex that, and it's that age old, okay, so if I'm a full-time person and you're calling me off, at least one or 2 days in my pay period, I can't afford that, I'm gonna go someplace else. So it's a matter of putting the right people in the right place, doing the job, and when you don't have that volume, you need to move them someplace else. Let's move an LVN from the clinic over to the hospital and let them work in the hospital when they need to. We're doing that more and more now. For a while there, we would be told, and not that this has happened just here. I'm a clinic LVN, I don't want to go to the hospital. Or I'm a skilled LVN, I don't want to go to the clinic. Well, now we're telling them, you go to the clinic, you can go to the hospital, or you can go home.
Is it a training issue though? I mean, there's.
No, it's I want to work where I want to work issue. Because we have a lot of folks who will do that for us. There's some of them who are, hey, I don't have enough to do here, I'll go work, I need to see you guys busy over here, let's go over there. It's a matter of, we've got some folks who just it's outside of their comfort zone and they don't want to do it.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at though, is if it's outside their comfort zone, perhaps.
Well, what I'm saying, I'm being politically correct, and see who my audience is, when I say outside of my comfort zone. We have staff who just don't want to work in certain areas, and they will tell us that. And at this point, it's okay, here's where we have a spot for you to work.
So we're talking expenses, but let's talk back on revenues again, because earlier we were discussing, you know, adding revenues in different areas and trying to improve, but we're not budgeting that way. You want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, let's just hit it one at a time. Okay, and not disregarding today's events, inpatient swing bed utilization, we can't do anything with that till we bring in a therapist or we bring in providers that are going to admit and round. Having that happen is speculation. You know, we could project that if we brought on one provider or we brought in this or that, it could generate this much additional revenue. Sure, here's the cost associated with it. But where we're at right now, there's no guarantee. We don't have, other than the one provider that we're meeting with on Monday, we don't have some in-hand thing. I mean, we're still even negotiating with the 2 nurse practitioners. I think it would be big speculation to think that we're going to be able to bring folks in. The thing with the physical therapy, we have to do analysis. We're going to have to get you guys to sign off on probably a multi-$100,000 investment if we're going to expand physical therapy services. What else is up there?
Steve, I hear you say that, but I mean, isn't that the bottom line? That's a lot of speculation. I'm saying we are hopeful that we can expand revenue by this, and here's an example of how that would work.
I certainly could do that. 100% correct. And I think that the way that I would look at it additionally is that were we able to do these things, it would provide incremental profit or incremental net revenue. And so So it just would be a budget savings, a budget improvement, however you want to look at it.
I mean, when I'm looking at it now, it's, well, we can do this, we can do this, and we can do this, but we don't have any projections related to how much revenue each one of these things potentially could generate for us.
You bet. Sure.
So it might help us prioritize a little bit. Prioritize where we want to expend energy, in recruitment, making changes.
So we know we have to bring in the one provider. So we know those recruitment strategies are working on. We know that at this point, we have a physical therapist who's trying to retire, who has a full-time grooming practice, so we
We'll
will.
make projections based on some assumptions, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Even the idea of people being a little more fluid in when they work, potentially make some projections related to that as well.
I think we,
We did that in the
I think we've addressed that one. I think this is about as fluid as we can get right now as far as if we were to achieve this budget on a labor perspective, I would be really pleased.
And one of the things I want to make sure that nobody goes away thinking is that we're laying off or terminating staff. We're doing the attrition and moving the right, moving people into different spots. Because public, they're gonna get a hold of this and they're gonna see, oh, look, it says FTE decrease, 2.4 and long-term care, oh, they're gonna fire 2.4 FTEs. It's not what we're saying, we're not firing the people, we're looking at moving them into the right spot.
I just don't think it'd be prudent to lay people off, especially when we're have some concern that we've had patient flight, and
Right.
patients might be coming back. That's the thrust. What we're trying to do is get patients back in, and then we have to recruit all the staff.
And that's my point for, I don't want anybody walking away from this meeting thinking that we're laying anybody off. We're moving them to different areas. We've got open positions here. So we're moving the people with the skill level to the right open areas. We need to make sure that we said that.
So with what Ken just said, I'd be happy to put this all together and bring it back to you all. I mean, my intent with this presentation, I know that it's on there, this is on there for approval. My intent was to run you all through this, get your feedback, and see if we need to get back to the.
I think it would give me a little better sense.
Sure.
Yeah, and actually, I think it says on here that we're gonna set a date for a special meeting.
We were, but we don't necessarily want to create a meeting, a special meeting. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and it's really, Ken's comments are kind of the crux of the issues you all have. I think that would be really easy to put together and to discuss reasonably efficient at next month's meeting. I don't see a lot of controversy.
You could have it all by next month.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's what was in the agenda.
Right. Well, we put that in the agenda as a placeholder just to make sure that if we needed to do a special meeting, we could notice it.
Well, almost always when you discuss the budget, questions come up. So it's nice to have people think about it and then come back and make a motion to approve.
And then after you review this presentation, if you have questions, please make sure you either let Steve or I know so that we can address them at the next meeting and we can be prepared for you.
Did Rich have anything?
Rich, do you have any comments on the budget?
No, I agree with all it said. Thank you.
So no special meeting,
I don't think we need a special meeting.
Okay.
I really don't.
Yeah, we won't have to talk about the EHR.
And I will have this done fairly, the next couple of weeks, so we can get it out to you guys soon, along with the capital budget. So we can, you guys can look at it and we
That's the next
can
question.
knock it out.
You know, one thing I would just wonder how you manage this. When you put this together, is your assumption that the clinic doctors are going to be working the same for the next year? Because nobody came around and said, are you going to be doing the same amount of work next year? Nobody asked Dr. Ware if she was going to be doing the
So, I mean, is this the assumption that we're gonna keep doing what we're doing?
Well, Dr. Wells, you said you didn't want to work anymore, so
I'm zeroed out.
I assumed that was that, and,
Well, part of those conversations that we had with the physician was over the discussion of the ER doctors and getting the backup doctors and, you know, taking those comments made in those physician meetings and bringing them over to the budget side.
Yeah, I was just curious, that's all.
That's how we did it.
I wasn't being critical. Okay, so then, we don't have to have a motion on this, we'll just come back next meeting. There won't be a special meeting. What's the comment here about position and mid-level
So
contract?
the comment about the position in the mid-level contracts is that we do have, Dr. Dugu who's coming, and I'm gonna let Pat talk to you a little bit more about him, but he had asked about becoming employed. On the mid-levels, we have, mid-level contractors, Stephen and Teresa, they're looking at two different models. They're looking at an employed model, and they're looking at a contractual model, or an independent contractor model. So the reason why I have it on this agenda and to talk to the board about is that within the authority that you gave me, we're looking at how we can build that into an employed model and a contractual model. So you're going to see a little different in those contracts and see how we jump on the position one about the RVU-based one. We're looking at, the authority was for the 260 at this set of RVU, that if we go to this set of RVU, it'll make some changes, but to still stay within the 260. So that's something that I need to chat with you guys about, because when we were doing some negotiations, which is a moot point right now, we were looking at how we were going to go about doing that. So we wanted to bring it up at this meeting that there will be some changes in how we're contracting with the physicians, but it's going to stay within the authority. It's just going to be some changes on what it looks like.
So you'll bring back more information on that?
Yes. Another example is we've got two physician contracts we need to look at for specialty physicians. One is, try not to.
That's okay, go ahead.
Thunder, but we have a urologist who now wants to come here 2 times a month. He has a different way of looking at how he wants to be contracted. He doesn't want to do it on an RVU base. He wants to do it on a percentage of reimbursement base. So we're going to have to look at that in order, to see if that works for us. We have to look at the existing contracts we have for the specialty services to make sure that we stay within compliance and not having violations there. So that's just a heads up on, we have to look at different models to get these positions to even look at us and come interview with us.
Well, that's okay, because ultimately the board has to approve the contract anyway.
Yes.
Okay. All right, next can of worms. We have item 11, incentive and evaluation criteria. This is another recurring issue that we should
So,
put together.
when I sent the CEO performance evaluation that we were working on and putting together to the attorney, the response back and I worded it to the board was pretty much that it was too cumbersome. Why aren't we just looking at the ACHD CEO performance eval, which is the standard for district hospitals? And I said, I don't know, I'll present that to the board. So it's very similar to what the evaluation was that the board did for the South eval. This is just the CEO performance eval. So I'm bringing this up to the board to see if that is an avenue you want to continue to look at.
Well, I think we all agreed that we needed something similar or smaller, more concise than what we had.
Right.
But my first impression here is, and I'm not going to speak for Ken, but the one thing that I felt very strongly about was the financial aspect of the evaluation. And so that's included right here. But also, did they break down percentages like our old evaluation did? Is there a percentage for financial, percentage for the different departments?
departments.
That's gonna be something that because the evaluation is very similar to that, board eval you did, evaluation that you did, so this board would have to break down your own, percentages for what you want to see in this SHD evaluation.
So if I recall from the last conversation, we had this evaluation was separated from the compensation evaluation. Determination of compensation.
Okay,
So a
incentive.
minimum passing score for the evaluation would make you eligible for
The
an
incentive.
incentive, and then we would judge how much the incentive would be.
Right.
So this looks to me like just the evaluation.
That's the old one that you have in your hand.
So we have one page that doesn't have any detail.
Right, oh, this is all they gave me, because it's very, again, similar to the board evaluation that you guys have already filled out, is what they told me. Now, what I've asked for is, can you give me a copy of this
Yeah, we
email,
need to know
so I can
exactly
see it? And so I'm waiting to get that, I've asked for it, because what they gave us here is not real clear.
No, it's just useful, but.
So,
So what the company,
Yes.
something to do with it, was that?
right.
So when are we supposed to do this in June?
Well, right now, we're trying to set an evaluation because the evaluation is due, my evaluation is due in September.
Yeah, so we have time to see their finished product.
I've already worked half a year on not having clear evaluation other than what we did from before and what I've seen that the ad hoc committee put together, so that's what I'm working towards. So yes, in September, we would then move forward with this new evaluation.
But this is not the incentive, but this is.
No, the incentive is completely different. This board has set a salary that is from the evaluation, so it would be just like an employee who you get this wage. And then the board also set an incentive on that the board had decreased some of the salary content and changed it into the incentive. So the incentive is one piece, the salary is another piece.
So for the discussion today, you were using an old,
For the discussion tonight, or the closed session for the incentive that was due to be awarded in March, it's set off of the already approved incentive from 2017.
so normally the CEO eval would be done once a year on the anniversary.
Right.
So that's would be,
That was that.
we got plenty of time before that to, and then, but what we don't have is, if we decide to do that, to wait and get the full copy, which I would do if it were me, but if the incentive, we still don't have a new criteria.
Right, so right now, what we will be discussing tonight is the incentive that was from September 2018 to March 2019.
And you're using an old one on that.
So that right. So then from March 2019 to September 2019, there's still not been, what are the criteria set? So, and we're already into this couple months. So that's the dilemma that we have.
So whose document is this one?
This is a document that was put together off of the appraisal form that Dr. Walls and Ken put together. I took it out of that annual appraisal and did a separate incentive document.
Okay. So you were looking to have this for a year from now? Okay, so we really should probably review this when we move forward when looking at what we're gonna do with this.
That's
Right? Because they kind of go hand in hand.
Because when you look at it realistically, as far as for the board and for myself, I'm looking at this both ways. I'm not just looking at it what benefits underwriting of the CEO. I'm looking at this as what benefits the facility. Is that you already have a CEO and speak in her term now. You already have a CEO who's working under the old guidelines that were approved in 2017. I'm already working under that. So I'm continuing to do that and more, or trying to do that and more, while we settle up with something that is more viable for everybody involved. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Oh, I just confirmed. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to look at this in absentia.
Yeah, you can't look at this in the back.
Well, or this one in the back, because they go hand in hand, yeah.
So if you have suggestions, after we get that SHDBOARD evaluation, please let us know so that we can look at it and.
What did we get then?
I'm gonna have Michael check with the Walker Company again. I've already emailed her and asked her, I need a blank copy. And I don't know if it's because, I don't know why she's not giving it. Michael got a blank copy. They're the same people. Michael got a blank copy of the board evaluation without a problem. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's because the CEO is asking for the CEO evaluation.
Do they do them different? Is it one that everyone,
It's
is
the
it
same.
an accredited one uses, or do they tailor it for an organization?
They tailor it for a healthcare district or a healthcare district that has a hospital versus a healthcare district that does not have a hospital.
Okay, but an individual entity can't say, well, we like this question a little different here. They don't tailor them?
Not to my
Because I'm
knowledge.
wondering if maybe that's why you can't.
And not to my knowledge, that they tailor to each facility. And again, it's no different than that eval that you guys filled out as a board.
Okay, so what does everyone want to do with this?
I think it was just informational more than anything else, right?
We're gonna get the full, write-up on that SHD.
Is that okay with you, Ken? Item 12 has already been discussed.
Okay.
HRG group, Steve?
Thank you, Walter.
Oh,
It's underneath your tab H. You talked about most of what was in there.
well, maybe we can just move on. So the next one is the bylaws committee update. Are we ready to go for that?
Well, I was, but then Linda sent us an email this morning saying that the attorney had just looked at it and provided feedback on some parts of it, but not all of it. So, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to waste the board's time until we have everything back from the attorney.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get that. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that went out, he gave it to me last night, I sent it out this morning to you about this, he did these changes to it.
I brought my laptop just in case, but I mean, unless the board disagrees, I think it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. So that's for next month.
Hopefully, it gets back to us.
Is there a strategic planning committee update?
Other than the NST was out and surveyed the Collins land out there that we're looking at in 10 acres, so you'll see some flagging and stakes. And so now it goes, back to Collins to approve that parcel, and then it goes to, the attorneys to give us language as to an agreement.
Oh, Steve, do you want to?
Not unless you have questions, I think we covered it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Steve? CEO report?
Pat, I'm gonna let you talk about what I didn't talk about yet under the,
Well, I have good news, we'll just make it happy in here. So, we do have a permanent position candidate who just confirmed a date. It's very short notice. He will be arriving next Sunday. And
I'm gonna have to put together a realtor who wants to look at property. He also would like to have a dinner next Sunday night, that'll be June 2nd, so I'll be sending out details as soon as I can get this organized tomorrow. And then he will be here Monday the 3rd also. We'll do a physician interview and a meet and greet. Dr. Walls did get to talk with him on the phone, and he seems really interested, and so we have our fingers crossed for him.
Where's the
He,
At Davis, he's
Uh,
working at Davis.
yeah, that's right, sorry.
He has worked with Quincy.
He had a solo practice in Folsom for 20 plus years, so he's familiar with the area. And then also we interviewed an occupational therapist, beginning of last week. And she lives in Chester, but she works in Susanville at the Lassen Nursing Home, and also worked with the occupational therapist assistant, who can work under her supervision. So we talked to Lindsay today, and between the two of them, they would make a full-time schedule. So we are sending them applications, and we can, once they're credentialed and employed, then we can start that swing bed program again and get that back together, so that'll be nice. We also met with John Scott. He grew up in Reno, and he's a urologist working in Gray Eagle. And he said if we could pull the providers and if we could estimate about 10 to 12 patients a month, he would give us a trial and come up once a month and start a urology service starting in July. He just mailed back his application, and he said he would also come back a second time to follow up, because I guess they need follow-up for that service. So that will be a new service coming shortly. Then we have Lisa Cordova here, who is from Walden University. She shadowed Dr. Walls, or Dr. Ware, excuse me, last year. She is in her last clinical rotation as a nurse practitioner. Teresa Nielsen and Stephen Hayden are both precepting her right now during this term. She showed an interest of being employed here once she completes her school, which this will be the end, and passes her board. So that is somebody who may be employable. We also have a physician assistant coming from Touro University in Nevada, who is going to shadow Dr. Ware in July. And we reached out to the school when we got their contract, because we are not contracted with Touro right now. Well, we are now. But, and they would like to work with us for future residency students to come on and do their clinical rotation here as well. So when that happened, we reached out to Mercy Medical Center and Shasta Community Health Center, who do their residency program as, I don't know how you word that.
UC Davis.
Through UC Davis, but so when you go online to apply there, it takes you to the UC Davis website. So we reached out to both of them, and both of them have already responded and are very excited and want to add us to their rural rotation. So this might be something that could be helpful in filling one of those empty offices, because as they come and do their rural rotations, then we can have another provider here. So I think that's all pretty good news. Some positive things to look forward to. Any other questions?
So historically, we haven't had people coming through and doing rotations here.
We did a couple of years ago.
I think we just had medical students.
Yeah, we never had that residence. Although years ago I suggested it, and I'm trying to suggest it over and over. I think it's an excellent way to have doctors see the community, but also they're licensed physicians, and they can
They can see
practice
people,
medicine, they
yeah.
don't have to be supervised.
I guess where I'm trying to go with that is how do we do more of that? How do we-
Well, exactly what we were
Right.
doing. When we reached out to those facilities, and they are very happy to have us on board with them, and so we've got 2 separate facilities that we'll be getting residents from.
So we'll,
So we made that step.
yeah, this is step 1, and we're gonna figure out what all has to happen. But we've got phone calls that we're setting up for next week, and we'll be
Yeah,
able
I'd like to see a line out the door.
yeah, it would be nice, and they're all for, underserved areas, which is what we are, and so it should, hopefully, fingers crossed, this will work out to be a good program.
I don't think to have residents coming through won't cost you anything.
When I worked at Northeastern, we had residents come in, just like you said, our doctors just put them in another room. They saw patients all day, and as far as I know, we did not pay them.
So Dana, the confusion is, we're not setting up a residency program, but we're bringing residents in. That's the
It
difference.
would be their rotation.
Would we consider putting them up?
Well, I mean, there will be that kind of an expense.
Yes.
Cost, but I mean, paying them a salary, they get a salary from the institution where they're trained.
Good, thank you. Under tab J, I was requested, last time we had our annual skills survey, that when we had the final correction and we sent it off, that the board wanted to have a copy of it, so that's what you have. And it's virtually what I had talked about last month when we had the verbal, that, the different deficiencies that they were going to cite. And they did, there was no surprises to this, and it is very minimal. We sent it off and we're just waiting for approval.
I mean, they cannot do another site visit?
No. The findings were still minimal, they don't need to do another site visit for a skill. Then the hospital barbecue with the gifts and the service awards, that went really well. The employees were real excited. We did, thank you, Linda McCurdy. We had to move it from the outside to the inside because that was a weather-related day. We had the altitude of tri-tips barbecue, and it was really well received. Dana and Dr. Walls were both president of our Q, and we also do the service awards. Lindsay's done a really good job of advertising it, so it was in the paper. Then the 4th of July parade, we will be having entry or float in the parade. Lindsay had, as I said, left. Does anybody know what the theme was? I forgot.
I'm looking at the notes.
Thank you. Lindsay's working on, this fantastic float for our parade, so we will be
Or you
in.
can just go red, white, blue, your choice.
Yeah, I remember the red, white, and blue she told me. So, and then Dana asked about Medicare changes, and there are so many different changes and updates that what I did was I got the Critical Access Hospital Coalition from California Hospital Association, the notice that they put out, and I added the ACHD, and I'm not sure that I asked this board, you're all on the ACHD listserv, so you should be getting the alerts. Are you getting them to your email?
The legislation, yeah, I do.
So I'm going to hand this out for you, so you can see some of the different changes that they're looking at and that we've been dealing with.
Can you speak to any?
I sure can. Yeah, can do it real quick. I was told I had to be brief. Not brief.
I didn't know.
You said you wanted to get through this.
He was thinking.
So, for Critical Access Hospital Coalition, they're redefining allowable costs for critical access hospitals. So that's going to be something that's going to help us in the long run on what they're actually talking about, what are our allowable costs. The big one is the total health, the wellness, the home health, or home, let me say, all home visits that they're trying to make that to be allowable cost now. So that's a piece of what they're working on. Then the bundle payments for care improvements, what's happening is the larger facilities, the MLOs of the world, they've got the bundled reimbursement. And so they're not wanting to release our patients back to us. into our swings and our facilities because they feel that they're gonna be hit with what we get reimbursed is gonna take away from their budget care. So they're trying to separate that out. That's part of one of the things that the coalition is working with CMS about.
Have you seen that issue?
No, because usually when ML sends us our home patients, it's because our home patients are coming and back home.
Yeah.
So, for us, it's not quite as bad as if it was a critical access hospital that is having problems getting their patients back in the facilities. Let's see, we don't have the problem of the off-campus provider, rural health clinic, because ours is on campus. The other one is right now, and this is part of what the problem that we have with outpatient occupational therapy, outpatient services. Right now, you're not supposed to be using a hospital bed for anybody that is considered an outpatient, whether it is what's left. An observation status patient, and this is one of the challenges that we've had with our ER physicians is to understand that if you do an observation patient, they're not supposed to be put in the same patient bed. They're actually supposed to be housed on a gurney. So we have gurney beds, is what we're calling it, is how we're dealing with that.
Why is it, quick to understand the distinction, why?
Inpatient beds get reimbursed one way, outpatient services get reimbursed another way, and outpatient services are supposed to be less than 24 hours. So, there's been some issues about hospitals using hospital beds, hospital designated rooms for outpatient services. Yeah, I think so. And if you read in here, the CMS staff even said that it was a weird issue, so. Yeah. And then there's another issue about the outpatient co-insurances and critical access hospital co-insurances based on 20% of the charges versus the fee schedule. So they're working on that whole piece, but what the response back when I sat in on this conference call that they had was that Congress has to do something about it, this coalition can't. Then they're also trying to waive CMS has a requirement that we have to have, a critical access hospital has to have 24-hour emergency care. They're trying to waive that. I don't know if I like that or not.
As in, or is it a change to an on-call sort of?
As in, critical access hospitals don't have to have a 24-hour ER.
We don't have to have?
But no, that's what they're trying to change. The coalition is trying to change it. I don't understand
Did you
that.
have people to call the physician that's on duty on that day or something? Come in?
I don't understand it. I don't like it. I think we need to do 24-hour emergency care in place.
Did they talk to why?
No. They just said this is a piece that they're asking CMS to waive, and I see ER as money. Yeah, not like,
Well, it isn't a matter of just money making. I
It's
mean,
care.
there's no single component in this hospital that the community wants more than an
It's
emergency.
the ER, exactly. I would think that they would be pushing standalone ERs, not have the critical access hospital lose 24-hour anyway. The broadband availability, we don't have that problem as much. Thank you, Linda McCready, for working so hard on that with us. Patient satisfaction surveys, and this is where we've been talking about it in here with our patient satisfaction survey because our low volumes hit us really hard, and then that hits us with the prime grant and some of the other grants we have. So this is where CMS was looking at, maybe they need to change how they're doing the scoring system for the critical access hospital. Then the 340B drug program, they're continuing to work towards making sure critical access hospitals that still gets that 340B drug program. Let's see. The annual review. Critical access hospitals are talking about this annual review of all the critical access hospital policies are really working on because we don't have the staff. And so what they're asking for is instead of making an annual review, let's make it every 2 years. Then they're still talking about that anti-kickback provision about securing the positions, and that is that fair market value clause that they have in there, and it's all about how we pay our positions. And the provider-based rural health clinics or hospital-based rural health clinics, so that's not one of our issues. And then this is another one that hit us hard. CMS is not allowing the rural health clinic to expand their services into additional space that is not physically connected. So for example, if our physical therapy was in the rural health clinic and we decided to move it out to the physical therapy building, we have to change how you build that. And some of the rural health clinics are on different campuses, and they want the different campuses to be considered one and a whole. That's not us, so it doesn't really affect us. And then this is part of that allowable expenses. They're really looking at reclassifying chronic care management and wellness so that the co-insurances can be paid and that the community and the participants will do more towards chronic care management. And then a big issue that we have here every summer is that snakebite, antivenom, and antibiotic emergency kits. They expire so quickly, and so what the critical access hospitals were talking about is one, what is the amount that we have to keep on hand right now? They give us an amount that we have to have. They expire every year, and we lose so much money because they're so expensive. Let's cut down the part of it. How often? Royce is gone right now, so I can't tell you. I think.
Pretty rare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we had a snake bite last year. We had one year where we had 3 in a row, and then we had none, so it's hard to say.
How much does the kit cost?
And it's up in the thousands. Kind of like that in.
You can't have one place it.
Well, they have a par level, that's what we're trying to change. They have a par level that says you have to keep so many of those kits on hand. And one of the things that we did years ago with dantrolene, which is hypothermia care, when you go into surgery, it's a disease process that some people have, where you go in under anesthesia and you go into hypothermia. Dantrolene is the universal agent for it. Dantrolene is very, very expensive, and so what we've done is the Quincy, the first district, Eastern Influence, and us carry so many units, liters of dantrolene on hand, so that if we have that case, because it's another very rare case, if we have it, we can call and get it to your ticket, so that very expensive drug doesn't expire for all of us. Let's see. We don't have leasing space leasing specialists. We go for those specialists, so that's not an issue for us. And then they're still pushing through on that Somerville 890 for the authority of the nurse practitioner. That's being very favorably looked at, and that's going to help us immensely. Because then our clinic physicians don't have to do all that supervising physician piece for the nurse practitioners.
Isn't that just a percentage of chart review?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's also that you have to have the physician available by phone, when the nurse practitioner is in the clinic, and you have to have the identified supervising physician. There's a lot more to that. And then the ACHD ones now, again, is this one that you guys have looked at already, and you need to go through, you want to go through it?
I don't think you can go through it. Anybody else?
And then the last thing that we've done through ACHD and CCAN is Leviathan did Senate Bill 227, which is that nurse staff patient ratios again. And what they're trying to do is if we don't meet the nurse staff patient ratio, then every time we don't meet it, it's an automatic $30,000 violation fine that we have to give to the state. What happens now is if we don't meet it, we self-report and says, you know, we had call-offs, we don't have enough staffing, but we had this in place. So we didn't meet the nurse staffing ratio, but we had some backup plans in place. We don't get hit with a fine right now, whether you have backup plans or not, we'll get hit with a fine if this and
How often does that occur? If we have?
We are very lucky because we have enough administrative staff that have the competency and skills that when we have call-offs like that, we call in that staff. So Ashley will come in, well, not that she's assistant, and we don't have that flexibility for the case can come in. In fact, Karen had to flex off today because she has to go work the floor on Saturday. If worse comes to worse, I still am confident and have my nursing license that I could go work acute. Now, I couldn't be up, but I could do acute, so we can move the staff around. So we're lucky that we have enough administrative people with nursing licenses that we can move them.
So we did never self-report last year?
We did. We've had to self-report, and the number of times I want to say off the top of my head is 4 that I'm aware of.
So, be significant cost.
If this bill was to be definitely. And that was when Karen came in and we had more follow-ups on top of what she covered.
So how likely do you think it is for that bill to go through? Is it because there was some issue at some site and that's why they decided to move forward with this?
Usually when these things happen, that's what happens.
So does it seem pretty?
Right now, there's been enough people sending the opposition that we think it's gonna die. We don't think they'll move forward. That's the Medicare changes and some governmental updates. The KDPA grant, we received a check in hand for the $218,665 for the lab equipment that we asked for. We got the total amount. And we were so thrilled when from KDK. She called to let us know that we got the whole grant, and that it's because how well the grant was written, that the community needs to see that we're moving forward with our facility, and they want to be part of that. And they know that the lab, the equipment that we're going to be purchasing for the lab will move over to a new facility. So Kendall was just really excited when they called to tell me we had to go there. So that was a positive thing. Then Gary Beck reached out to me. He's from Renown. He's the rural health director of rural health services at Renown. So he came and we chatted, and we also chatted about the UNR residency program and what can they do to help us. And so we've been moving forward on that side, as well as Renown talked to me about transferring patients and how easy that to get into Renown and the different transfer agreements. So we're building back that relationship with them under the rural health auspices.
The only challenge would be you have to have the residents there would have to
Health license, and that's what we talked about. And he does have some, they have residents that want to practice in California. So they're looking at what that logistics can be for the Renown ones, or from the UNR guys. Then, let's see. I'm going to let Ann talk about telehealth. I'm not going to steal your thunder on that one. Okay, you can. No, I'd like the staff to give you more information. And then we did get the certification of occupancy for upstairs, so that remodel was completed. And then when Aspen gets here next week, we're going to talk to them about the OSHPA 3 regulations and what can we do so that we can get some outpatient services where we need them. We're laughing. And then yesterday, we had the county-wide disaster drill, and I have to commend Linda McCurdy is always on that drill, moving forward with us. It was not just a tabletop drill, a telephone drill, yeah, we can do this, it's done. It was a functional drill. So our staff worked really hard and really well at doing that drill. It was, the scenario was fire out there by Bailey Creek. And we had to do evacuations. We had people in here who had the whole Hollywood makeup on. Casey took over as the incident commander, and Lindsay was our PIO, the information officer, and they did a fantastic job. So when you see them, give kudos, because Casey was really reticent about taking on that incident command. She just didn't feel she was ready, and let me tell you, she stepped up and she was fantastic at it. We have some fantastic staff here. So that went really well, the disaster drill. And that's all I have for right now, so I'm gonna let the rest of the staff do some talking. When is their turn?
And then I think we had wanted to keep on here, keep in touch of where we are with the policy for dealing with the homeless.
Oh, thank you. No, I have. Thank you. We just had a conference call yesterday on the homeless with California Hospital Association because there are some new rules that are coming in effect as well. So this is something else that Casey took a step into, and she's worked really hard at getting those policies up to date, keeping those policies in track with the rest of the county hospitals. So we've been moving forward with that. And in fact, we did have somebody that came in that we closed. We made sure that they had an appropriate house, for Karen went in, we had to fill the refrigerator for them. So we actually put that in place, and it worked out pretty well.
I think the law is going in place at the end of June, though, so should the board be approving policy around that?
You've approved some of those policies. Some of it is that they made some changes actually on that conference call yesterday that we just had. So you're going to be approving the policies in June that have to be in place, or that need to be approved for July 1st. You know, we're kind of behind the law, but we had to follow the hospital association, what they're doing. So we're moving forward on it. It's not something by any means we just let go. It's things that we are doing and we put into place.
Thank you. Could I, you said the remodel upstairs was finished?
We received the certification of occupancy. So that now comes the point of, what are we doing with that space? It was getting moved in there, and that's where we were talking, we're moving the HIM up there, both sets of HIM. So that we can build that space for that admitting area up front that we've had the complaints on, and that's been a compliance problem. So to do that is to move the CNO office out from where they're at next to admissions, so that admissions has those two offices, so that we can avoid some compliance issues.
But for the upstairs, the remodel is done.
The remodel is done, the room is done, we've got, all the permits have been approved and surveyed, and we can occupy it now.
Do you have a final cost of the total?
You know what, I do not, we can get it and get it back to you. I don't have it off the top of my head. Steve, do you? Yeah.
Yeah, and we briefly touched on the market study earlier. Do we know when we'll have something from you?
We have a meeting with Aspen next week. I want to say it's either the 11th or the 12th next week. Aspen is coming in to ask us some more questions and do some final, do you know when the Whitley, they said they were almost done.
Yeah, sometime in June, I'll show out to you, our chain, I'll get the data. It's awful.
So we're hoping in June, see.
Anything else?
Nobody? Okay, I guess we'll get to departmental issues.
So Casey had to leave, and she said she really didn't have much other than we met the crime grant criteria, and we're getting more than what we expected from that. She wasn't sure how much more, but we were getting a little bit more than what they had told us we were going to get, because they looked at some of the backlog of last year's submission. Is what she told me. I haven't got any official word on that one. And as far as care coordination goes, they've been working really hard on making sure that when those patients get admitted down to swing, that we have the accepted position, we have it ordered, we have everything we need. And then you have Sadie's compliance, Pat?
I do. It looks like they completed a facility-wide compliance survey and learned that staff really needs to be educated. They are having their first compliance committee meeting scheduled on June 6th, where they will discuss how compliance fits in with our quality program, how compliance and quality complement each other, so the audits we are currently performing for the quality program are a great start in creating action plans to bridge the gaps in operational activities fulfilling compliance. sorry, I didn't do this. We will also discuss the conversion of our policy and procedure coordinator position to a compliance coordinator position and how that role will support the facility. We are updating our code of conduct in which all employees, board members, contractors, volunteers will need to read and acknowledge they understand the content. So please be on the lookout for this to come.
Is there anything from Karen?
She said she didn't really have anything additional to add, and then Ashley was just really wanted to make sure that the board was aware of the good survey that we had, and then she's getting the help from Pam B. And Pam and she were the ones who put together the plan of correction to send off, so, and that they're full, so that's why we're not being pulled down.
I had a meeting this morning with Pam. It's quite favorable. Ann, do you want to give a report?
I guess, which was my arm. So I'll start with behavioral health update. We're not at full capacity with the psychology providers that we have. We can still take more patients with that. We are looking for another psychiatrist. We only have the one and he's at full capacity. I did get an email today that was dumped in my lap about a mid-level who has psychiatric credentials that we can look into and see if there's some potential model there that we can work with. He would be an independent contractor through telehealth. So that is, just brand new. I haven't told anybody. I just got it right before we came in here. So we're still holding steady with our numbers, right around 40 to 50 patients on average per month with the current program that we have.
So when you said, you're not at capacity.
With our psychologist.
Psychologist.
So we're seeing
You use that term literally, a psychologist, as opposed to?
licensed clinical social workers.
Okay, so there's a difference. So
Okay, sorry.
I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing here. Okay. I have a real concern about the idea of a telepsych social worker. Because social workers, their whole role is to be in the community and understand local resources, connect people, to refer people, to coordinate with local services. And so, someone who's not in the community, which I don't see how they do that. I don't see how that's effective.
Am I wrong in the messages they have? No, you're
Okay.
right. We have an amazing one, that's Megan, right?
They might be able to do therapy. I think that's really one piece of the role. Just bring up one here.
Mm-hmm.
Question, Ann. So you said we're seeing about 40 to 50 patients a month. Are some of those coming back? Like,
Yes.
Does that capture more than one
Those,
individual?
that is visits. So we have patients that come in every week.
Okay.
Some come in just once a month. Some
But
come
we're
in
still
very
not
little.
at capacity.
No, we're not. So right now, we have one provider who's, we have blocked out that we can see for, patients 8 hours a day. She's, some days she does see 8 patients, but most of the time she sees right around 5 or 6. Some of those are last minute cancellations and no-shows that we can't fill. So we're working on that issue. Our other newer provider, Megan, she's currently with us 4 to 5 hours a week, and she's right at about 3 to 4 people a day, depending on those cancellation no-shows and last minutes and what we can't fill. So we're still trying to book them up to where they have a call list, that if we have a last minute cancellation, we can get somebody in short term, but we don't have that quite yet.
Do we find that our cancellations are consistent with regular clinic visits, or are they more likely to cancel if they're doing telemedicine?
I haven't specifically looked into that and analyzed it, but off the cuff, I'm gonna say it's about consistent with normal clinic. But I'll make a note of that to look into that deeper and give you
I'd be curious if you
more
need an additional follow-up call or something.
Yeah, and we're doing normal, follow-up calls or not follow-up, but reminder calls, just like any normal clinic. But I will look into that to see if I have any action for you. Mhm.
Is that the end of your report?
No, I was just writing that note before I forgot. Sorry. I did spend 3 days last week at a telehealth conference in not-so-sunny San Diego. It was actually kind of cold and miserable, so it was nice to be indoors getting some education. I learned a lot at that conference. There are a lot of really new and cool and interesting things happening in telehealth. It's just about whether or not reimbursement is following and catching up, and it's starting to get there, but as of right now, we're not seeing the reimbursement. There's more movement in the Medicaid services. Medicare is dragging its feet drastically on reimbursement for telehealth services. But there are some pioneers in the field that, you know, we, depending on financials and reimbursements that we have the opportunity to be a pioneer in some of those new ventures. Like, there's one company who's offering teleoccupational therapy. So that was something that I came back with as an idea, but now we have somebody in person who's willing to do that. Adventist Health in Paradise, they were really promoting, after the fire, telehealth primary care, so that they could still see their patients with their primary care providers and get them seen, and they were really instrumental in kind of pushing that forward and making that work. So we have some different models and different ideas that we can look to see if we can make a revenue stream from those, but it's going to take a lot of research. Like, we can hire on an ICU doc for the hospital, but that doesn't mean we have the equipment and the supplies and the nursing staff and all of that behind what we can do. So there's some interesting things to look into to possibly expand revenue streams, but I think it's really in its infancy right now for us as an idea concept. So it's something that we can explore, but I don't know that it would be in the next year, but we can definitely look and see what we can do. I got some really good ideas from it.
Thank you.
Was that everything you wanted me to cover, Linda? Okay.
And I don't know, TK, do you have anything more to discuss?
I do. It's more in general towards evidence movement towards the future. I was able to visit the conference and see some of the demonstrations, touch bases with some of the Evident Home Office personnel and some of their key developers, and it was very helpful. They are putting forth a patient console. Right now it is in design phase, but what I saw was very hopeful and inspirational. It is less clicks, it is more functional, it is, they're wanting to include more smart messaging. At this point in time, it's not designed to work with documentation. They're trying to work that out, and they are putting together a task force to give a better representation for the nursing staff from that standpoint. It will be more familiar to the users because it would be more like if you were going on the internet. You have these placards, and it's really nice. You basically, like, there's an area and you hover and information is immediately available. It very much streamlines the clicks. You get a patient summary that's more accurate, and you stay within that home view. So it is very much more forward in their approach and delivering of information. They are also working on the medication list and future orders, working to make that more simple and concise. They're also going to be adding an electronic prior authorization feature into medication ordering. So if they go to order that and it's not approved by their insurance, you can immediately, with a few clicks and answer a few questions, get that medication approved. Also, they want to...
Or deny.
Or, yeah. Well, what'll happen is it's the way they're doing it, it's so that it can be more intuitive, is if it is denied, it's going to refer you to what information it's looking for so that you can get it approved. Also, they're looking at alerts to the provider so that it will be more informative as far as is the patient adhering to the prescription plan you set forth? Are they picking up those medications every 30 days because it's a 30-day script, and if it's not, it's bringing it to your attention. Notes right now is with 70 different sites. There are some things that they're still trying to develop. One is that right now the health history doesn't come in, and I don't want you to misunderstand and think that the health history is absent. Right now in the evident platforms, you have the problem list, which is one application. You have the health history, which is a second application, second area to navigate, a second possible area to have to update. They're looking at combining that so that it's one application that the program is referring to and how it would reference when completing the notes. It is a more efficient design than what they have right now with the FISDoc, and they are working on making it more intuitive. For the CPS IQ, which is their learning tool for the users, the library is multiplying exponentially as far as these quick videos that help the users to gain the information that they need. But they're not stopping at that. Their goal is, and they have some offered now, is to actually offer CEUs to our nurses and potentially providers further down, so that it's not only a learning tool for our EHR, but it's also a general learning tool for which our staff's time, they're being rewarded with the CEUs at the same time. For the security sessions I sat in on, we have implemented the interventions that they discussed. So that's good to know that we're on par with where they're at in their recommendations. For the scheduler, there are enhancements for both the clinic and the ancillary departments, in that they're going to have an area where the user can review the tasks that is expected of them and that they're responsible for during that process, which helps if you have new employees, or sometimes just if there's certain things that we're scheduling for that maybe we're floating the employees because we're maximizing their use and our utilization within the clinic. Then what will happen is they'll have those tools immediately available, so hopefully they will feel less maybe apprehension about, oh gee, I can go fill in because I have these tools right in front of me. It's going to tell me exactly what I need to be asking and what I need to be doing. Also in reference to behavioral health, because actually Evident has some behavioral health clients, the scheduler is being worked to work in coordination with group sessions. And one of the nice features about that is that you have to have notes from these group sessions. And what it'll do is it'll kind of set up a pattern or a note where the essence of the note is there, but then they can still tailor that to the individual's participation in that group session. So that's a nice feature that they're adding. And then there was also several sessions that I sat in on regarding regulations and measures related to quality reporting, drug regimen review, radiology, medical necessity, which is coming. So I plan to summarize some of that, follow up on a few phone calls and clarification questions, and then we can delve into that further. But it was very informative. It was very helpful to see where they were going. It was nice to be able to talk to one of the designers that really articulated that they are looking at stuff. They are counting clicks and trying to reduce that. They're trying to make it more intuitive, and they're trying to gauge what healthcare looks like 10, 20 years from now, so that they are keeping up. And I did notice in some of the Black Book reviews that Evident has raised the bar and has accelerated on some of those independent studies and reviews.
That's what I was going to ask. I don't know what you're talking about is 5-year roadmap that they're laid out.
Well, okay, when you're talking about like development and design, so when we're on the patient console, and they don't like to put dates.
Oh, I know, but they
But-
give you a pie in the sky idea.
Yeah, so to give you an idea, they are putting together now a task force on that nursing review committee. You know, typically, if we're judging them by past performance, you're looking anywhere from 1 to 3 years. But you can tell by how they're approaching it, their approach is different. It's much more dialed in with specific outcomes for results, and they are looking towards the future, not kind of just chasing. You know, their approach is just much more defined, and they are reaching out to the sites to get that early feedback, so that once they come out with the product, it's meeting our needs, not it's coming out, then they're gathering the support, and then they're going back to it. And one of the philosophies that they iterated is that they should be listening twice as much as opposed to like their feedback. Whereas before, we were kind of getting a lot of information from them, but it felt like, what's that?
Competition.
Yeah, but it felt like what we were asking for wasn't being heard, it wasn't being incorporated, we weren't seeing results. It seemed like the delivery time was 3 to 4 years, where they have cut that down significantly. So it was positive.
So it's, she's talking about the CPSI annual conference.
So you can tell them that the really good systems have built-in phone ticklers to tell people when their appointments are. And
Yes.
that they should upgrade and get into that system also. It's a real deficiency in their program. Okay. Jake, do you have anything?
I just have a couple of things. We've signed the agreement with Info at Risk to have them come back this year and do our independent study for our required every other year network security assessment. We've also opted this year to do the HIPAA gap assessment, which will review all of our policies for access administration and things of that nature. Once that is completed, we haven't had our kickoff call yet, but we've secured the contracts have been signed and ready to go. Once we have the kickoff call, I'll have some more information, and once that assessment is completed, I will make sure that I set up a agenda item and report to the board as to their findings. And I'm also very excited and very pleased to announce that we are implementing a secure fax and print server here at Seneca Hospital, which will cut down on a lot of HIPAA risks as far as what is coming out of the printer. It will know, when you send print jobs, it will no longer print that piece of paper until you actually go to the printer and you'll scan a barcode badge that will be attached directly to you, and then it will actually print your papers out. It's been a big thing in the industry lately as far as, you know, printing things. Somebody walks up to the printer and they're trying to find their paperwork, and they come across, you know, family members' private medical information that may or may not need to be seen by them. And it will also, the fax, we're going digital on the faxes, same as we did with the phones. So when these referring facilities decide to send you 20 and 30 pages worth of, you know, will you take this patient, here's their entire medical record, it will not print out on your printer unless you know, ask it to. So, so it'll cut way down on the interruptions in your clinic flow and things like that. And if it's something that you're as a provider or as a nurse or something that we know we don't want, then we don't even have to waste the paper to print it out. So that's all I got.
No, she left, because of the only emergency, and she asked that, she send you guys a written summary of her activities that both your arm marketing. She'll send that out to you guys.
Jim?
I don't have a lot of hires other than Pam, which we all know, she's helping out Ashley in the transition from after we lost Roseanne. I do have some conditional additions. You've only got one, a housekeeper that will start next week. But I have made offers to 2 diet aides and cooks as per diem. We have offered a position to an RN as a per diem. She lives in Westwood. Hopefully this will move into something full-time. Yeah. And may or may not be offering a position to a rad tech, radiology tech. And we also have a new grad LVN. We'll be interviewing next week, and she's a candidate for Workforce Alliance. So we're hoping that'll pan out. And we did lose 2 CNAs, and to speak to what Linda was speaking of earlier, they left because they didn't have enough time because they're studying to become LVNs. So we're hoping that they will come back. They live in Westwood. So, but they're just doing their prereqs. They're a year away, but maybe we'll get them back. So that's the kind of thing we're working
Okay, thank you.
on.
And there is an item on the consent agenda. Pretty non-controversial. But I do need a motion to accept the revision of the auxiliary bylaws.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, Gary? Dana?
We got a conflict. Yeah.
So you're gonna abstain? Rich?
Aye.
Ken? And I, aye, so it'll pass. 4-0. Agenda items to be added to next month's agenda. Let's see, there is the health and safety code that we put off till next month. We'll have another closed section on that. And then, of course, there's the never-ending CDO evaluation.
ACHD, that's what you just said.
Yeah, and then the bylaws committee update. And then something about Collins Pine, I guess, Linda will bring that.
And then the capital budget, bylaws, homeless policy, seniors, cost downstairs.
Aren't you gonna do the budget?
Yeah, she said.
Yeah, she did.
Capital and operating.
Oh,
Anything else anyone can think of?
the telehealth visit, no-show ratio versus the clinic no-show. Unless you want, Ann to just put that together or send it to you in an email.
Unless the board minds, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Okay.
you can do that.
All right. Then I think we will take a 5-minute break, and then we will leave for a closed session. So we're going on a break, Randy. Just vote, Ken?
Aye.
Terry? Rich?
Aye.
Dana?
I'm abstaining.
And I vote aye. So there will be a $7,500 incentive, and Ken and I will be meeting with you to discuss the reasons for the decision.
Let's schedule that.
We can schedule that. Do we have to do it now?
No, I move we adjourn.
We'll work with you in the schedule meeting.
Let me make sure we've covered everything. How about if we set the next regular meeting time, June 27th, 2019, at 3 o'clock here in this room?
During the joint conferences, I think the 20th, that you still have, still in paper now. And can I just have who made the motion and who seconded it again, please? I made the motion.
Jerry made the motion and Ken seconded.
Okay. Is it 12:30? Is that right? Yeah. And 20th? Pardon? You see 20th, right? 20th, yeah.
What is 20th?
Oh, that's joint conference, sorry.
The next joint conference,
Aye.
okay? Meeting's adjourned.